It's October already.
It's a Hacktoberfest.
And if you don't know what Hacktoberfest is,
it's a celebration.
And it's an open source.
Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source software
Created by DigitalOcean.
It's changing the world one pull request at a time.
You can be a developer, designer, or even a content writer.
In short, you do open source contributions and you get lots of swag.
Yes. Swag bag. This is so amazing.
Oh, look what I got. Yeah.
A Hacktoberfest t-shirt, guys.
I would like to thank DigitalOcean for sending me this t-shirt because I was participating in Hacktoberfest.
So join us for this year's celebration of open source software at hacktoberfest.com.
Let's get hacking.
ayan. Ayan. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael and kasama natin dito si Andre. Hi, Andre.
Hello.
Ayan. At sineselebrate natin ngayon ang open source with DigitalOcean in this month's Hacktoberfest celebration. No? Excited na ba tayo dito, Andre? No? Talagang itong open source technology sa to, talagang tinatangkilik ito ng mga developers. Ano? Tama ba?
Oo naman. No? Siguro kung babanggitin natin kunwari React or Angular or kung ano mang technology yung ginagamit nila ngayon, most likely open source yan. Diba?
Ayan. Kaya tayo dito, no, together with PWA Pilipinas, no, talagang sineselebrate natin ito month-long with DigitalOcean. Ano ba itong Hacktoberfest na ito, no? Actually, ito ay open to everyone. No? Ito isang month-long celebration by DigitalOcean in partnership with Intel and Dev Community upang ipalaganap natin ang open source technologies at magkaroon ng mga iba't ibang contribution sa ating community. no? Kaya kung ako sa inyo guys, no, learn how to appreciate this open source technologies dahil itong mga to nakakatulong sa atin to no? Kapag tutulungan tayo, pag yung mga bawat tao, bawat developer nagbibigay ng kanilang contributions, ano? Tama? So, sineselebrate natin to month-long celebration, no? At saka kung gusto ninyo sino ba dito ang gusto ng free t-shirt, guys? Ayan. Mag-comment lang kayo dito sa ating fan page, PWA Pilipinas fan page, sa YouTube. Tsaka sa Twitter, no? Papanood tayo sa Twitter. Kaya ako sa inyo, mag-comment kayo, gusto nyo magtanong, magpabati kayo. Now, ayan. So, Andre, no? Kitang-kita natin sa t-shirt ni Andre na meron siyang t-shirt. Paano kayo magkaroon ng t-shirt? So, ang gagawin natin ay gagawa tayo ng 4 pull request. Sa GitHub na mayroong Hacktoberfest topic. Okay? So, kung kayo ay napapabilang sa 70,000 participants that can successfully complete this challenge, will be eligible to receive a prize. So, yun. So, before we start, no, ipakita natin yung opening remarks, ano? Ni Yancy Spriul.
Hi.
Oops. Ang CEO ng DigitalOcean. Okay. Sige. So, paano kaya? Teka lang, kasi nagpe-play na to no? Sige. Ito. Nakita ba?
Ay, wala.
Nancy Sproul here, DigitalOcean CEO, and I'd like to welcome you to the 7th annual Hacktoberfest.
Ay, nawala. Wait lang.
Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source software.
Wala ba? Okay, wait lang
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties tayo.
Yan talaga pag live.
Sige. So, sige, mamaya na lang siguro yung no?
May video tayo kung paano makakuha ng shirt. Yun muna.
Okay. Sige. Okay.
Wala si Lance.
Nawala na.
Diba yung avatar
okay, yan.
ko?
Kaya nga. Okay. Sige. Hindi, sige, try na natin i-play yung...
Hindi, sige, go.
Sige.
Try natin yung kanina.
Okay. Yung kanina, no? Wait lang i-play na natin yung video from our CEO of DigitalOcean, Mr. Yancy Spayul.
Ayan.
Yancy Sproul here, DigitalOcean CEO, and I'd like to welcome you to the 7th annual Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source software for all 31 days in October. And in this event, this month-long event, we bring together over 100,000 people to contribute to the betterment of open source software. At this annual event, we have open source projects where developers become contributors, students and early learners, learn more and build their passion and experience. And we gather people together online. Historically, we've done offline, but in 2020, I suspect will be predominantly online. But we bring people together from over 150 countries throughout the world. At DigitalOcean, one of our core values is around community. And the pillar of the language of that value is we say, our community is bigger than just us. And I can find no better representation of our investment and our passion for fostering the global community of developers and entrepreneurs than Hacktoberfest. It's an important element for us because it brings so many people together in this very global way for 31 days, and it generates so much excitement and passion around one of our core value propositions as a business, which is around open source. And what we believe happens during the month of Hacktoberfest, not only do we bring people together, but we help people learn and we help people grow. And that's a fundamental tenet of what we're all about at DigitalOcean in terms of enabling global entrepreneurs and developers to test ideas, build their businesses, and chase their dreams. So what we hope that you'll gain is that you'll participate, you'll learn a little bit more, you'll join a project, you'll meet new people, and you'll help make open source software better for the legions of people who use it today and well into the future. So with that, I can't wait to see you all and what you will come up with this year at Hacktoberfest. And remember that for those projects that are accepted, you get the famous DigitalOcean Hacktoberfest t-shirt, a prize well worth earning during the month of October. So until then, be well, and we'll see you in October. Hi.
Ayan. So,
Ayan.
ay, teka lang, bago tayo magpatuloy, no, Andre, no? Sino mo gusto ng libreng $100? Sino? Ha? Sino ba gusto ng from DigitalOcean? Sino bang may gusto? Kung gusto ninyo mag-avail nito, please visit this website, bit.ly/freedo, no? Para makakuha kayo ng libreng $100 credits from DigitalOcean. Okay, Andre, ano ang ating madi-discuss dyan?
Kung gusto niyo mag-participate, ayan, meron tayong list of available repositories na pwede nating pag-contributan. Visit natin yung hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. Ayan. Lagyan natin ng banner. Hacktoberfest.
Ayan. Ito. Sa mga gustong mag-pull request, start na by going to this website at hacktoberfest@digitalocean.com. Ayan. Ano pa yung mga website na dapat panghalihan, Andre?
Meron tayong sa PWA Pilipinas, meron tayong parang repository na pwede silang mag-contribute, no? Hack to home screen. So gagawa tayo ng parang to-do na web app. Ayan. So kung gusto niyo mag-contribute, visit nyo lang yung hacktoberfest.pwd pwpilipinas.org/. Ayan. Okay. Basta visit nyo, nandun yung mga links for repositories natin. Yan. Okay. So,
Okay.
ayan. Sinong gusto ng freebie naman? Agdag sa $100.
Ayan pag gusto ng freebies mag-login lang
Ayan,
dyan
meron
sa
din tayo dyan.
pwpilipinas.org
Okay. So, next. Ayan. Introduce na muna
Okay.
natin yung...
So, hindi magiging possible tong pag-celebrate natin ng Hacktoberfest kung wala ang PWA Pilipinas. Ano ba itong PWA Pilipinas, no? Pakinggan natin si Andre, no, upang malaman ano ba ang PWA Pilipinas.
Sige. Wait lang. Yun. Okay. So, sino kami? PWA Pilipinas. Kami ay isang community organization for progressive web app enthusiasts, designers, and developers here in the Philippines. At ang aming mission is, if nakita niyo sa map na nandyan sa screen niyo, na wala tayong representative pa dyan. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pa masyadong kilala yung PWA. And our mission is to introduce and to nurture yung progressive web apps development and adoption in the Philippines and beyond by fostering a community for subject matter experts, enthusiasts, adopters, and developers ng platform by providing them resources and engagement para ma-stimulate yung interest sa progressive web apps. Dahil ang ating vision ay ma-adopt yung progressive web apps sa Philippines para magkaroon tayo ng better user experience. Ayan. So, syempre, ang event na ito ay under ng ating Code of Conduct na makita nyo pag nag-sign up kayo sa app.pwpilipinas.org, at meron ding Code of Conduct for Hacktoberfest itself na nasa hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. Ayan. So, konting introduction lang, slight na intro about PWA. So, ano siya? Ano nga bang progressive web app? So, it's your traditional web app na alam mo, pero nagkaroon na siya ng native apps functionality, like pwede nang gumana offline, tsaka ma-access yung device hardware. So, basically, PWAs are web apps with progressive enhancements. So, ilan sa mga features nito ay, first, it can work offline. It's installable. Pwede mo siya install sa phone mo. It's engaging because it has push notifications, and it's typically smaller than most native apps. Tapos since web app ito, pwede mo siyang i-share using yung URL at pwede mo na siyang i-search. Yan. So ilan sa examples nito ay, if gumagamit kayo ng dev.to, and PWA yan, so pwede siyang install, and if tinry na siya i-open offline, hindi nyo makikita yung dinosaur pag gumagamit kayo ng Chrome. At ipopromote ko lang yung aming app. So, if gusto niyo pang matuto more about PWA, or if you want to be part of the community, so visit nyo lang yung app.pwpilipinas.org, or hanapin nyo sa Google Play yung PWA Pilipinas. Nandun kami. So, we are also community partner ng User Experience Philippines, UXPH, and they're going to have a conference ng November 14 to 15. Online ito, so visit 2020.uxph.org, and we have a lot of great speakers dyan. Ayun. Okay. So, saan na si Michael Lance? Wala ata siya. Ayun.
So, ayan kaya focus sa inyo guys, mag-like, share, and follow kayo dito sa PWA Pilipinas community, at saka sumali din kayo dun sa event ng UXPH. Ayan, so Andre, no? Curious lang ako, no? Ano ba itong role, no, ng open source sa pagpo-provide ng impact? No? Talagang magandang usapan nito, no? Ano kaya ito, Andre?
Feeling ko siya yung pinaka best na makaka-explain sa atin ito. So, at pwede natin ipasok sa stream C. Let's give welcome na kay Sir Albert.
Okay.
Hello.
Ayan.
Kamusta naman po?
Magandang hapon.
Ayan. So, introduce ka muna namin, no? Ayan. Sige, wait lang. So, introduce mo natin si Sir. Sino ba si Sir Albert? Ayan. So, Albert Bashumol is a machine learning engineer and a data solutions practitioner based in the Philippines, promoting data-driven and evidence-based solution to various industries and companies. Well, he has an 8+ years of experience with open source technology, both in academic research and industry applications. So definitely we're going to have a lot of great insights because of that very long experience. So also he is an advocate for using technology to promote social development and nationalism, and also teaches data science and its applications, focusing on human-centered design and data ethics. Yun. So welcome, Sir Albert or Bashumol. Hi. So, ayun. 8 years, no? Grabe. Ayun. So, ang talk niya ngayon ay role of open source in impact space. So, whenever you're ready, you can start sharing itong napagandang talk natin tonight.
Thank you so much, Andre, Hacktoberfest, and PWA for inviting us. Can you confirm if my screen is already shared?
Yes po. We can see it clearly.
Okay, thank you so much, Andre. I can start my presentation. Again, thank you so much for inviting us. I am, again, Albert Bash from the Computer Professionals Union. I'm the current Education Committee Head. And this is my talk about the role of open source in the impact space. So I've been using open source. I've been an advocate of open source when I was really young during my college education. So here's who I am. My background is originally from physics, but I transitioned to doing data science, big data. I also do making with Internet of Things, Raspberry Pi, Arduino. I also attend rallies, when it comes to voicing out the concerns of our kababayans in terms of the conditions of our farmers, our workers, our teachers, our educators, lalong-lalo na ngayong pandemic. The first time na na-encounter ko yung open source ay nung pagpasok ko sa college, I was using a netbook, a laptop. Pero napansin ko na, yung gamit kong software before, I was using Windows, hindi ko ma-customize. Ang bagal, prone sa virus. So, ang ginawa ko, nag-try out ako, nag-research ako ng alternatives to Windows operating system. And doon ko na-encounter yung Linux. Tuwang-tuwa ako nung una nung na-encounter ko yung Linux operating system kasi sa Linux operating system, ang dami na pala niyang distro o distributions na tinatawag. Merong Ubuntu, Elementary OS, Kali Linux, Arch Linux, ang dami. So talagang isang araw talon ako ng talon ng operating systems hanggang sa nagka-problema yung hard disk ko. Yung hard disk ko nagkaroon ng grab error. So halos umiyak-iyak ako nun kasi hindi ko magamit yung laptop ko for my academics back then kasi hindi ko ma-access yung yung mismong files. So I did some research when I was in university. Sino ba yung mga pwede makatulong sa akin? Sabi ko malamang nasa computer science department yan sila. So I was looking for organizations that are really doing like open source technology, open source operating systems. Doon ko na-meet si UP Linux Users Group. Hindi na yata ito buhay na organization ngayon, pero back when, during my time in the university, sila talagang organization na naglalaban ng free open source software. Parang kung mapapansin nyo sa University of the Philippines, yung mga computers nila sa library, dati naka-Oracle, naka-Windows, sobrang mahal ng binabayad. Pero itong organization na ito, na-push nila dun sa kay President Clemenzo back then na gawing Linux yung operating system ng mga computers na ginagamit sa library. So, ang laki ng tipid ng university because of this. Fun fact, no, I became an active member of this organization. I actually became the president of the organization back in 2015. And tong 2015, no, I was thinking together with my org mates, ano yung mga activities natin na pwede nating ipang-celebrate, no, sa open source knowledge, open source technology. So naisip namin na noong panahon na kasi na yun, hindi pa ganun kasikat yung mga open source tools, no? Very niche, konting-konti pa lang yung mga taong gumagamit ng open source technology. When you look at the markets in the engineering and science departments, most of them are using MATLAB, yung mga may bayad pa na proprietary software. So, kaya nung 2015, nagkaroon ng parang malaking push sa university, no, na parang ipagpanawagan yung call for using free open source software and yung advocacies ng open source software. Noong 2015, na-invite namin yung father ng free open source, si Richard Stallman. Na pumunta siya ng Pilipinas, nag-talk siya sa university tungkol sa advocacies niya. And tuwang-tuwa ako sa character ni Richard Stallman. Talagang sinabi niya na yung open source technology, it's not about really using free software. It's more than that. It's an ideology. It's a cultural revolution. Sinabi niya na ang free open source technology ay hindi lang parang free beer. Hindi siya pang free product. It's analogous to free speech. So kasabay ng mga paggawa daw natin ng software, yung software ay hindi lang siya isang product, no, na binebenta natin, na pinagkakakitaan natin. Yung mga software na ginagawa natin ay may human sanctions. Nanggaling siya sa utak natin, yung mga software na to ay ginagamit ng live human beings, no, na hindi ganun kasimple yung dynamics niya, no, hindi pwedeng tingnan lang siya sa simple product. It transcends through our ideology, it transcends to our philosophies and those kinds of things. So, tuwang-tuwa ako nun kay Richard Stallman. Very down to earth. Naglalakad siya ng nakapaas sa stage para ipakita na hindi formal yung ginagawa. It's really a revolution, talking to human beings. Tapos, nung we were serving him like cook, nagalit siya kasi, no, ayaw niya talaga sa mga, big capitalist industries. So, medyo extreme yung tingin niya, pero I echo his call na yung technology natin, no, mas maraming magbe-benefit kapag nagawa siyang libre, kapag accessible sa lahat. So, babalikan ko lang, no, konting introduction sa open source technology. Sa open source movement na tinatawag, meron tayong tinatawag na 4Fs o 4 freedoms. So, ano ba yung mga 4 freedoms? Ang isang software ay open at libre kapag libre nating nagagamit. So, freedom to use, also freedom to share. So, kapag nag-download tayo ng software, nagagamit natin siya, at may papamahagi natin siya, na-share natin sa mga kaibigan natin. Yung pangatlo ay freedom to modify. So if I can look at the source code of that software freely, I can analyze it with transparency, then it's part of the 4 freedoms. Yung last freedom ay, of course, bilang mga programmers, bilang mga developers, it's important that we can share our modifications to others. So again, this is the 4 freedoms of open source technology: freedom to use, freedom to share, freedom to modify, and freedom to share our modifications. Okay? So punta naman tayo sa purpose talaga ng talk ko ngayon. Ano nga ba yung role ng open source technology for social impact? So ang bigat, no? Mukha siyang topic ng mga superheroes kasi dati kapag sinabi mo nung nasa university ako, pag graduate ko gusto kong lutasin ang kahirapan. Pag graduate ko gusto kong tanggalin ang corruption sa pamahalaan. Masyado siyang parang nakikita natin, superhero, big goals, ang layo, hindi siya attainable. But nakita natin, no, throughout the experiences of other countries, throughout the lived experiences of activist technologists here in the Philippines, it's possible to use our skill sets as technologists to improve our society. So bilang data scientist, no, working in the field, working in consultancy, working with NGOs, these are the tools that I use for the projects that I will present to you later on. Ano ba yung mga projects na nagawa ko na may relation sa social good? So ito yung mga tools na ginagamit ko. Again, ano lang to, walkthrough ng mga tools na ginagamit ko. So if you can screenshot, dadaanan ko lang no, anong mga parts ng data science workflow, anong applications ko siya ginagamit. So yung tools na ginagamit ko, in particular, I use these main tools no, in the projects that I do. I use Python, I use R, I use JavaScript. All of the items here are open source. No? Talagang nagagamit natin to develop software developed technology that we then like deploy or make our users use. So ito yung mga main ko na ginagamit sa programming. I use both Python and R. I use JavaScript. For data visualization, I use Matplotlib, Plotly, RShiny, mga gumagamit ng RShiny for dashboard and visualization. Bokeh, Seaborn, again, Matplotlib, Seaborn, we use it for static visualizations. So yung mga plot nyo na hindi gumagalaw, so 2D, 3D na static. So we use those libraries that are open source. We use Bokeh and Plotly if you want to make dynamically changing visualizations. So yung mga may interaction sa users, pwede mong i-zoom out, and so on. Sa mathematics naman, since yung field natin sa technology, no, kailangan talaga natin matuto at gumamit ng statistics at mathematics. Ito yung mga common tools na ginagamit ko. I use NumPy for mathematical processing, for SciPy for statistical and scientific computing, Pandas for data wrangling. For big data naman, ito yung mga toolset na ginagamit ko in my work. I use Spark, I use Databricks, I use Hadoop, I use Hive. Specifically in Python, I use PySpark no, to manage clusters, to manage big data, no, para mas efficient yung pag-manage mo ng mga data. In terms of ETL sa mga kasama natin na nagde-dev work, nasa data engineering side, we use these toolsets for extracting, transforming, and loading data. We use Kafka, MySQL, Pentaho, and dbeaver. For machine learning, these are my two, and forecasting as well, I use scikit-learn mainly for the machine learning things that I do. Prophet, made by Facebook, they made this open source. You can use it for forecasting. That's a really, really good tool as well that you can use for more advanced applications of technology. No? Medyo sikat ngayon yung term na artificial intelligence, computer vision, natural language processing. I use these tools for my classes. I use these tools for my projects. So Spacey, NLTK, those items are for natural language processing. OpenCV, scikit-image, and clarify, those items or libraries are for image processing, image recognition problems, and so on. PyTorch, TensorFlow, Keras, that's for the deep learning models that I use, like LSTM, recurrent neural networks, the families of neural networks that improves the way we do our predictions, improves the way we do our clustering problems. Now, for deployment, I usually use Heroku and Streamlit. Fan na fan ako ng Streamlit. Sobrang streamlined nung paggawa niya ng web app. So, ang dali-dali niyang gamitin. I forgot to place here two items na ginagamit ko rin lagi, no? Flask and Django. So, those two items, nalimutan ko lang ilagay. You can just like note it down. I used Flask and Django for web app deployment as well. For network theory, no, important na-apply natin yung mas advanced math for more complicated problems. I use NetworkX in Python. I use Gephi to visualize the networks. Neo4j is also a good resource to do it. No? Kapag bored naman ako na mag-try ng software, pampagod na ako mag-code, na hindi ko nakikita agad-agad yung output na tangible, na physical, I also do some projects with Internet of Things. So I use Raspbian OS for Raspberry Pi. No, Arduino as well is an open hardware which uses open software for its processing and coding. So processing yung language na ginagamit kay Arduino. For environment, these are my recommendations. I use Atom, I use Git for version control, Jupyter Notebook for demos, and Spider, I use it as well for scripting and script deployment in Python. So here are some of the projects that I do na ina-plan ko ng mga tools na ito. No? Ito yung mga social impact problems na binabanggit natin. No, I was able to apply these tools to certain problems na nakikita natin na makaka-affect talaga at maka-improve ng lives ng mga tao. No? Recently, I finished a project to use machine learning models, artificial intelligence, using satellite images to find the probability of an area based on water index and other features. No, what's the probability of this area na infested siya ng malaria? So things like that. We were able to develop this in partnership with ZAP. It's an NGO based in Africa, and hopefully, no, since tapos na yung pipeline, we can also build these types of technology here in the Philippines. Kasi malaria is still an issue here in our country, lalong-lalo na sa northern Mindanao and Palawan area. Other applications that I used, I did this with a team before we joined a competition from Data Ethics Philippines. So we applied machine learning models in Python, in scikit-learn, no, to do a feature importance algorithm to help resolve the low enrollment rate or the high dropping rate of students in the Bangsamoro region. So nagamit talaga namin yung mga skill set ng data science, skill set ng statistics, no, to help resolve real issues of people. Nakita namin doon na kaya pala mataas yung dropping rate sa Mindanao kasi walang IDs yung mga magulang nila, hindi ma-enroll yung mga anak after a certain grade. No, so ang maganda ngayon, open yung Bangsamoro region to accept evidence-based solutions. So nakita namin na dun sa policies nila ngayon talagang tina-target nila na mag-build ng systems para mabilis magka-ID, birth certificates yung mga magulang at saka mga bata na nasa Bangsamoro region. We also use this for more relevant, no, in terms of our government. This graph here is a network graph built by my teammates before in National Institute of Physics. We're using physics, we're using equations, not to solve problems in society. Like if you remember the problem during Noynoy Aquino's time, the PDAF network. So we used graph theory to analyze. They used graph theory to analyze the interactions of NGOs and the pork barrel system. So nakita dun sa node na, uy, may mga malaking taong nakakatanggap ng pera na hindi naman nag-i-exist. So mga ghost accounts, mga ghost employees. Tapos nakita dun na may tatlong senators, no, yung pinaka reason kung bakit may ganitong ghost accounts or malaking dubious transactions. So if you remember, Estrada, Enrile, and Revilla, sila yung nakulong, and isa ito sa justification kung bakit sila nakulong. So we used science, we used statistics, graph theory, no, to really assert transparency to our government. So that's really social impact. Yung mas lapit sa atin, no, I remember doing this project together with Department of Science and Technology. We're doing crowd research before, no, so we used image processing, crowd dynamics, no, to identify. Pumunta kami noon, this was in 2016 yata or 15. Pumunta si Pope sa Pilipinas. Ang ginawa namin, nag-install kami ng mga Raspberry Pi cameras para i-monitor yung pag-cluster ng mga tao sa kalsada. Kasi yung mga tao sa crowd dynamics, kapag more than 20 people within 1 square meter, they act as a fluid. So fluid dynamics ng equations, tapos nakikita kailan magkaka-stampede based on the density of people in 1 square meter. So that's very interesting, no? Na yung mga technologies natin na to ma-apply natin tuwing may Nazareno na ang dami laging casualty kasi hindi natin napopwesto ng maayos yung mga MMDA officers natin, for example, no? So ang ganda, no, kapag yung mundo natin ginamitan natin ng science, ginamitan natin ng technology, talagang ang daming solution na magiging streamline, magiging transparent yung mga systems natin, no? Yung last project na ginagawa ko ngayon, medyo recent ito, I'm doing a chatbot together with my students in SQL Labs. I teach data science, particularly I'm teaching them how to do a chatbot. So we're doing a chatbot for students na hirap mag-online lessons. So parang gumagawa kami ng question answering chatbot para makatulong dun sa mga subjects nila. And again, I will plug this PWA, Progressive Web Apps. So tuwang-tuwa ako kasi that's what we plan to use kasi yung mga students natin namamahalan sa data, walang budget, no, walang kulang yung support sa government for their studies. So we really plan to use PWA to deploy this chatbot para magamit ng mga students basta may cellular signal lang sila, not needing internet. So that's really amazing that we can use open source technology for these applications. And I hope you are excited as I am. No, ang gandang mabuhay sa panahon ngayon na ang daming available na technology that we can use. It's just about the proper mindset. So, ano nga yung gagawin natin kapag may mga open source tools tayo, no? Of course, ang daming applications yan sa industry. Pwede i-apply ng business, ng bank, pero isipin natin na yung mga technologies na ito, hindi lang dapat natin gamitin for profit. Ang daming tao, daming kababayan na makikinabang sa ganitong system kapag ginamit natin siya for social good, for social impact. So again, that's it for my presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me and the Computer Professionals Union for this talk. I hope you've learned something from this very short discussion. And again, thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you.
Grabe, sobrang na-overwhelm kami. Pero grabe pala yung pwede maging impact, no, ng open source and ng open data, 'di ba? Sa society. Grabe. Ikaw, Michael Lance, may question ka ba?
Okay. Bash, ganda ng ng presentation. Talagang natuto kayo na different perspective kung paano nagagamit itong mga makabagong teknolohiya to, no, for our country and for our society. Pero ito may tanong lang ako. Ito ay sa mga pinaka-controversial na na tanong, if you may, sige, ganito, So, nabubuhay na tayo in a world na kung saan nagkakaroon ng pandemya, no? Ng COVID-19 pandemic na inaapektuhan yung buhay natin, yung kabuhayan natin, and everything. And yung siguro, yung magandang naidudulot nitong, sabihin nating natuto rin tayong magkaroon ng appreciation sa technology naman. Di ba? Pagaya ng mga ganitong webinar. Yan. Mga collaborative tools. No? At saka yun nga yung collaboration kung saan natututo tayong makipag-usap sa mga ibang tao, makinggan yung kanilang mga opinion, mga gano'n. No? Pero dito in collaboration, dito napapasok yung governance, yung role ng gobyerno in addressing the issues of COVID-19 pandemic and to facilitate collaboration among the citizenry or yung mga Filipinos. And naniniwala ka ba siguro, sige nga, ito pang una kong tanong, naniniwala ka ba na yung open source can inspire collaboration in different sectors of the society, especially the government?
Of course, very much. Open source is built in the concept of community. Maliban sa concept ng community, no? Ang tinitingnan talaga natin dito, kaya tayo nagde-develop ng open source kasi gusto nating ma-involve as many people as we can. And I think that's the purpose of the government. We're in a democracy in the Philippines right now. Maski hindi natin ganun karamdam, democracy pa rin yung umiiral na type of government natin, and the power should be to the people. So to develop technologies, kailangan it's all consultative. It's all in the process, no, of letting the people know the process that's happening in the government. And I think it's one of the best solution that we can make to resolve corruption. Kapag ginawa mong open source yung tools ng government, no, magiging transparent yung mga data ng COA, no, masisilip natin, may binili bang kawali na 50,000 pesos. So ganun ka-important na ito ay step by step, hindi to madali ang process para magsisimula tayo sa mindset natin, cultural perspective, na ang problem ka sa Pilipinas, wala tayong culture ng science. No, hindi tayo kagaya nung sa Europe na nagsimula sila na may mga Einstein, ganyan-ganyan. Sa Pilipinas, lagi tayong nabuhay before sa mundo ng superstition. So binabasag natin yung ganong mga phenomenon, no, na kailangan maging evidence-based talaga yung pagtansya natin ng mga bagay-bagay. Na ngayon yung mga gawa kasi natin sa gobyerno, most of the decisions, no, hindi ko naman pinapatamaan karamihan, pero a lot of the decisions ginagamit nila intuition, which makes sense. But the problem is, no, kulang yung intuition. Kailangan ginagamitan natin ng datos, kailangan naging objective tayo. So, una sa step doon, hindi lang syempre nauwi yan sa usapin ng paggamit ng open source technology. Nauwi din yan sa usapin na ang government dapat nag-open ng data. Since ang government ang pinagsisagwisya niya public, dapat public yung mga interactions, no. Ito yung naisip ko no. kung aware kayo sa issue ng dolomite, parang sinasabi ni Auntie Porda dun kay Dr. Laura David ng UP Marine Science Institute na dapat sila na lang mag-usap. Parang bakit ginadamay niyo pa yung public? Dapat internal na lang itong natin usap. Pero hindi ganun. ang usapin ng Manila Bay, usapin ng sambayanan, lahat tayo ay involved sa ganung action. So dapat basagin natin yung concept na yung government, yung mga interactions nila, ginagawa lang nila within themselves. Hindi, nawawala yung concept ng collective, ng collaboration with the people. Which is yun yung problem kasi the government should be for the people, of the people, and by the people.
Mahalaga yung binanggit mong Bash, na paggamit ng open source technology sa gobyerno, no? Kasi alam mo, Bash, yun din yung sinasabi mo ring pagbibigay ng priority importansya sa science. Kasi nakakagulat, Bash, Andre, na nakinaltasan ng Kongreso ang budget ng Science and Technology and Research and Development, no? Which is a very humiliating and depressing news, And ngayon, nagpalabas na naman yung sinabi ng DOST na 10% lang daw ng mga research proposals ang maifa-fund, no? Nakakalungkot, sa science and technology community. Pero ito yung tanong mo, Albert, Bash, Kasi ini-implement na ngayon yung tinatawag na National ID System, no? Yan ang magandang tanong. Oo. Ngayon kasi, maraming issue dyan sa pag-i-implement. Ito, dalawa lang naman yung tanong ko lang naman dyan. Andre, baka pwedeng sagutin mo rin to, no? Dapat ba proprietary software ang mag-handle nito o open source? Yan ang magandang tanong. Oo.
Okay, sasagutin ko ng mabilis. Very close to my heart yung usapin ng national ID system. Passion ko yung cryptography. That's what I've been doing before in my research. I'm studying cryptography before. I was invited in the National Privacy Commission last year. Nag-celebrate siya ng week for a debate. So naka-debate ko yung chairperson na gumagawa ng national ID. So nagde-debate kami nun sa stage, sa sa PICC. Ang sabi niya sa akin, wag daw matakot kasi yung system na ginagawa na mahal, so matatrust daw namin. Matatrust daw ng taong bayan maliban sa mahal yung system na ginagamit nila. Ang sabi nila doon, 100% secure. Talagang napaganon, na facepalm ako sa stage. Sabi ko, walang system, walang machine na 100% efficient, walang cryptographical system na 100% secure. Ang problem dito, ang weak point mo lagi ay human beings. So basta may tao na nagmamanage yan, lagi kang may weak point, lagi kang may vulnerability, magagawan ka ng reconnaissance. So, nagulat ako noon parang sinabi ko sa kanila, na kayo pa ba na yung data namin ng passport, di ba? Naalala niyo yung issue yung passport, nag-leak yung data natin ng passport, hayaan ba nating maulit niyan? At napaka-vulnerable na hindi natin ma-audit yung system kasi proprietary siya. So, paano natin malalaman? Anong mga algorithms yung ginamit na to encrypt? Paano ngayon kapag ginawa natin yung national ID system na kinalap mo na yung iris scan ko, yung biometrics ko, lahat into one document? Paano yan kapag nag-leak? Ano yung repercussions yan sa privacy ng isang tao? Nakulang pa yung discussions natin sa Pilipinas, nahuhuli na tayo. In Europe, I attended the seminar during 2018 in London. Talagang aggressive yung tingin na nila sa privacy bilang a human right, digital transformation in their companies. Tapos, kailangan nating maghabol sa Pilipinas kasi lalong sa usapin ng fake news, ng fake identities, talagang kailangan nating magamit ito para magkaroon ng checkpoints at saka balances sa ating government, sa ating system para hindi siya maabuso. Yun yung problem sa ganun kapag nasa iyo yung system prone to abuse. So paano yung mga nagdi-dissent sa government? Tatanggalan mo kasi ang dami mong pwedeng i-connect na services dun sa national ID So paano kung media person ako? For example, I'm from Rappler. Nag-show ako ng dissent at hindi lang po sa Pilipinas nangyayari. Nangyari to sa China. They're using facial recognition algorithms, yung WhatsApp nila, hindi WhatsApp, WeChat nila. Paano yun kapag nag-choke? Pag nakita ka sa rally, madi-disenfranchise ka dahil hindi ka uma-agree dun sa views ng government mo. So, ang dami niyang repercussions and marami pa tayong discussions na dapat simulan, no? At ang maganda nga kasi binubukas na natin ngayon pa lang no, yung mga repercussions ng data privacy, ano yung mga problemang kakaharapin ng naipasa na national ID system no, na kailangan natin paghandaan. So tayo bilang mga technologists na nakakaalam, malaki yung ano natin kapag mulat tayo na inaabuso yung system, no? Imagine, di ba? Tayo bilang programmers, kapag nakakita tayo ng bug sa system, anong ginagawa natin? Hinahanap natin yung bug na yon. Hindi natin siya pwedeng iwan kasi pag iniwan natin yung bug na yun sa system, babalik at babalikan tayo nun sa future. At ang problem nun, hindi nag-a-add up ang bugs, nagmo-multiply. So ang problem ngayon, no, parang ganun din no kapag nakakita tayo ng mali sa system, no, technological man yan o kung ano man, no, kailangan natin siyang i-correct, kailangan nating itama.
Ayun. Alam mo, I agree nga na there's no 100% secure system. Sabi ko nga kung yung sabon nga, no? 99% of germs ang natatanggal ko. Hindi naman mayroon pang butal, no? Paano kaya yung mga software systems na hanggang sa oras na ito nag-update sila eh, no? At saka, how do they assure yung protection ng ating data, no? Eh kung isa ko sa election pa lang, kung natatandaan mo, no? Sa election pa lang. Grabe. Sige. Ate, may tanong pa?
Wait, meron yata itong ating galing nasa space apps. So,
sige.
Hello Luigi, may tanong ka po ba? Wala daw siyang questions eh.
Akala ko may live question tayo.
sila.
First time lang yun, live question. Oo. Sige.
Ayan.
Ganito.
So,
ito
may tayo, mga... Yan, salamat daw
shout
Sir
out.
Albert, sabi ni... mga shout out.
Ay, hindi. May tanong ako kay Sir Al. Sige. Sige, tuloy. Ayan, sabi ni Maclem, wonderful. Ito may tanong ako kay Sir Al, kay Sir Bash. Gusto mo ba ng $100?
Ano?
Gusto mo ng $100?
Oo naman. Alam ko na ipa-plug mo. Kasali na ako dyan.
Ayan, kaya...
Nakita ko na yan.
Kaya guys, Ayan, so bumisita lang kayo dyan, no? Bit.ly. Tsaka, para makakuha ng $100, At saka, 4 pull request again. At sa DigitalOcean para makakuha tayo ng free t-shirt. At saka mga goodies, naman, from PWA, Pilipinas. Napaka-interesting ng talk natin, Bash, Andre, regarding open source. Dahil ito ay malapit din sa puso ko eh. Kung may ko-connect ko lang, Albert, yung national ayan, alam mo ba yung tinatawag na national? Ikaw, mahilig ka ba sa outer space? Ayan, matanong ko nga itong si Bash. Ayan, mahilig ka ba sa mga outer space? Ayan.
Michael, I'm from physics. I studied some subjects in quantum mechanics and astrophysics. I trained in India back in 2017 on nano satellites. So I'm very involved in space science before. Bago ako mag-data science, pero binabalik ko nga yung love ko ng space,
Kasi nga,
I'm from instrumentation physics, so I know a lot about rocket science and robotics.
Ayun, good to know about that, Bash. Kasi, ang National Aeronautics and Space Administration or yung NASA, nag-ano sila ginagamit din nila yung mga technologies nila or binibigay nila sa publiko as open source. Kung yung Amerika nga, yung United States of America, binibigay nila yung resources nila as an open source. Bakit hindi sa sarili nating bansa? Di ba? Andre?
Oo.
Yun din yung inaano ko rin pinagtataka ko. Kaya nga itong NASA na to, they organized hackathons na tinatawag or community or community-driven marathons kung saan na nagde-develop ang mga kabataan ng mga solutions to address the real-world problems on Earth and space, no? Ayan. So, nakakapag-excite, no? Bash, Andre, kasi dun sa hackathon na ito ng NASA, kung tawagin na Space Apps, no? In-start natin ito since 2016 sa Pilipinas, 2012 sa buong mundo. Kumbaga, ang maganda kasi dito, nakaka-produce tayo ng mga winners, no? And gumagamit sila ng open source software, ng open source technologies and data ng NASA, no? Kaya nakaka-excite, no, pang siyam na taon na natin to sa buong mundo at saka pang 5 taon na to sa Pilipinas, ano? Nang palagay mo, Andre, ano bang exciting dito sa na to, hackathon ng NASA?
Marami palang pwedeng marami palang problems na pwedeng ma-address. Kailangan lang talagang may initiative lang.
So, kailangan
so, mukhang thank you naman go.
Sige, ano yung sasabihin mo, Andre?
Baka okay na tayo kay Sir Albert at magana siya. So, thank you kay
Ay, mamaya pala, no? Mamaya ba? Kasama natin siya for the panel, no? Mamaya magkakaroon tayo ng panel discussion.
Nandiyan pa ba, Sir Albert?
Bash, nandiyan ka ba?
Hello.
Ay, hindi. Any last words pala? May gusto ka ba sabihin? Sige.
Wala, nagpapasalamat lang ako sa inyo, Andre, Michael, sa team ng PWL. Kudos, I agree with what you do building this community. It means a lot to us, no, na nakaka-contribute tayo sa open source at saka sa community. Maraming salamat. Sa susunod ulit, to more discussions and to more collaborations, guys.
Okay, sige.
Thank you.
Thank you so much pa siya.
Thank you. So, may pa-promote ka pa po ba? Or
Ayos na.
Okay na.
sige. Thank you.
Sige. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, napag-usapan na natin sa physics, no? Sa rocket science. So, grabe, no, Andre, no? Kung saan tayo napupunta, no? Pati nakakapag-ano din tayo ng mga wishes. Nakakapag-excite ito, no? Pero, curious lang ang mga natin, no? Curious tayo dito. Ano ba itong space apps na to? Or the NASA's International Space Apps Challenge? Ayan. Ano ba excited ka na ba, Andre, na malaman pa ang detalye tungkol sa hackathon na international hackathon ito na ginaganap ng NASA? O sige, pakinggan natin ang Associate Administrator for Science. Walang iba kung hindi si Dr. Thomas Zurbuchen.
Hey, I'm Thomas Surpuk, an Associate Administrator for Science here at NASA, and I'm so happy to welcome you to Space Apps. Space Apps is a community of scientists, engineers, artists, and hackers coming together to address key issues here on Earth. At the heart of Space Apps are data that come to us from spacecraft that are flying around Earth and are looking at our world, and we ask you to take those data to learn new things that help us. To learn more, go to spaceappschallenge.org or join the conversation at #SpaceApps.
Okay. So, sige, okay. So, ano pa itong space apps na to, no? Sige, magpe-present lang ako ng konting slides. No? Okay lang. Sige. Ano ba itong space apps na to? Okay. Ayan. So ito ay isang annual hackathon na NASA na ginaganap sa buong mundo since 2012. Ito ay pinapangasiwaan ng NASA. So ano ba ang purpose ng Space Hubs? To inspire collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, to foster interest in Earth and space science and exploration, to raise awareness of NASA data around the world, and to encourage the growth and diversity of the next generation of scientists, technologists, designers, engineers, artists, at iba pa. So, since 2012, no, na ngayon ay celebrate natin yung 9th year, ito isang international hackathon for coders, scientists, designers, storytellers, makers, builders, technologists, at iba-iba pa kung saan in-engage natin ang free and open data ng NASA to address real-world problems on Earth and space. So, in the light of the COVID-19, no, ginanap na natin tong hackathon na to online, no? So, ang tema natin is to take action, a critical reminder that anyone can make a difference even from the comfort and safety of your home. Ano ba yung hackathons? Ito ay technology-driven marathons kung saan nagdodraw tayo ng talent and initiative from bright-minded volunteers kung saan na gustong magkaroon ng immediate impact sa mundo. So, ito ay open sa lahat, no? Space Hubs is open for everyone, kahit hindi pa marunong mag-hack. Ito ay pinapangasiwaan ng NASA, katuwang ang Booz Allen Hamilton, Minecraft, tsaka Second News. At tsaka ang special ngayong taon, meron tayong partnership with the European Space Agency, Japan Aerospace and Exploration Agency, Guinness ng France, at tsaka Canadian Space Agency. So, since 2016, nang dinala ni Char Umang itong Space Hub sa Pilipinas, ginaganap natin to, no? Year after year. Nakapag-produce tayo ng 3 winners and 3 finalists. Ayan. So yung mga nahuli, no? Kagaya ng gumawa ng isang winner natin ng dengue mapper app, no? Kung saan napipredict nila yung potential locations ng mosquito habitats ng dengue using satellite and climate data. So, ganun din yung isa pang winner natin, gumamit sila ng Earth observation data to show the impact of COVID-19 in various countries. Tsaka, last year, no, dumating ang mismong head ng Space Hubs. Pero every year kasi ginagawa ito, no, ng NASA. Year after year, sila nagbibigay ng challenge. Kagaya nito, no, observe, how do we observe our planet using Earth observing satellites. So, paano tayo makagawa ng tools para maging accessible sa lahat. Dito naman, tinitignan natin, no, nag-gather kasi ng data yung NASA, CSA, Guinness, JAXA, at saka ESA sa buong mundo, no, gamit ng space technologies. No? Paano ba natin magagamit or mapapalaganap itong data na ito? Alam mo, sa buong mundo, no, pinoproblema natin kung paano mapapanatiling habitable ang ating planet. So, paano kaya natin masustain ang human habitability ng ating planeta using space technologies? So, alam nyo, marami tayong nararanasang mga natural disasters, economic inequality. So, paano natin ito ma-address gamit ang teknolohiya? At saka, alam nyo, sa mga panahon na ito, nagkakawatak-watak ang mga tao. No? Paano ba natin mapagtipon-tipon ang sangkatauhan kung saan napaka-facilitate natin ang connection gamit ang mga space agency data mula sa Earth at saka space. Pwede ka rin gumawa ng sarili mong challenge. So, bukod dyan, meron ding virtual bootcamp din ng NASA, no? Kung saan pwedeng mag-access yung participants ng para malaman paano gumamit ng satellite technology or any other At saka nagkaroon din tayo ng mga mentors, no? Ayan. So, meron diyang mentor na talagang pinagmamalaki ko talaga sa bottom right corner, no? So, taging mentor yan. No? Tsaka yan, no? Sa paghanap ng mga winners, ito yung mga criteria for judging. At saka sa buong mundo, pipiliin ang 6 na global winners. Ayan. So ito yung ilan sa ating mga collaborators. Next year, magkakaroon ulit tayo ng hackathon October 2 to 3. At saka huwag kalimutan gamitin ang hashtag SpaceApps and SpaceAppsPH for space apps. At saka huwag kalimutan like, follow, share, at saka subscribe sa ating social media. Ayan. So, ayan. Okay. So, thank you for that.
Yan. Oo. So
kasi
ngayong gabi,
sige, Andre.
Sige. Ngayong gabi po, i-present nung tama ba? Top 3? Tama, Michael Lance? Top 3 sa ating local na nasa space challenge. Yung kanilang mga solutions, no? Tapos mamaya, i-interview natin sila kung paano nakatulong yung open source para magawa nila or ma-ideate nila and magawa nila yung prototypes nila. Ayun. So, unahin muna natin yung first team, no? So, yung unang team ay Manila-based SANS. So, ito yung ginawa nila. Yan, ito yung project page nila. So, Manila-based SANS, sustaining our planet for future generations, yung pinili nila, tama ba? Ayun, tapos sila ay part ng global nominee. So, isa sila sa pambato natin. Oo. So, team members, syempre si Pio Fortunato III, Adel Ismael Mandanas, Luis Miguel Flores, Pascal Bernardino Pama, Luigi Del Rosario, tsaka si Celine Ann Moredo. Ayan. So, nandito yung representatives nila, no? So, isama natin sila sa stream. Ayan. Saan sila?
Okay. So, muli, no? Excited na, again, nagpapasalamat ulit ako sa PWA Pilipinas sa pag-invite sa atin community, no? SpaceApps community para ipakita yung para makiselebrate na rin ng open source sa ating sa bansa, no? At saka ito nga, no? Ikinararangal ko na ipakilala ang una nating kalahok nito sa SpaceApps Challenge. No? I-discuss nila yung project nila about Manila-based SANS. So walang iba kundi si Luigi Del Rosario.
Hello po. Thank you very much for inviting us here and for the opportunity.
Hello.
Okay. So, i-share ko lang po yung screen ko. Sure. Ayan. Sana ay makita nyo na po. Ayan. So, again, hi, I am Luigi, and I am from the group Manila-based SANS, and I will be presenting our entry to the NASA Space Apps Challenge 2020, entitled Messages in Bottles. And this was submitted under the challenge, Sustaining Our Planet for Future Generations. So first, I will be going through the background of the problem, and then a brief overview of our project, and then I'll show a quick demo of the website. Afterwards, I will explain how we tackled the problem in a bit more detail. And then I'll go over the future plans and limitations. So let's start. We all know that coastal waters are littered with plastic waste. Thankfully, because these areas are easily accessible, it's enough to spark action in the form of beach and port cleanup drives. However, when unattended plastic waste drifts into the ocean, outside of any country's area of responsibility, it tends to get forgotten. And so we end up with huge garbage patches, like, for example, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And also recently, remote sensing has been proven to detect plastic waste. In fact, and you'll probably see these names a lot later on, a research group from the UK. Hold on. Yeah, a research group from the UK has made a research entitled. Okay, it's in the end here. A research entitled "Finding Patches in Coastal Waters Using Optical Satellite Data." Sorry, it wasn't in the slides. It's made by Doctors Bierman, Cluley, Martinez Vicente, and Topuzelis. In fact, we actually got in contact with these researchers to ask about their paper. Well, anyway, basically what they did was they're able to find novel ways to use satellite data from the Sentinel-2 satellite in order to detect plastics in coastal waters. And that's actually one limitation there because Sentinel-2 is only capable of getting coastal areas, and they can't really go towards the big open ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And so, as of one thing to note is that usually with research, the general public doesn't really read much about it, and there's a gap there. There's a gap between the research and the general public, and that's where we come in. So our solution, entitled Messages in Bottles, is an online interactive platform that visualizes satellite data and gives information on suspected plastic waste in coastal waters. So it's inspired by the works of doctors Bierman, Cluley, etc., and it aims to bridge the gap between their research and the general public, and eventually become the bridge between other similar types of research and the general public. So it's basically just a visualization of suspected plastics in coastal waters, and I will show a quick demo later on. Here is the basic flow of the data, or like how we did this project. So first, what we did was we collected data from Sentinel-2 using the Copernicus Open Hub. And then we opened it in the Sentinel Access Platform, Snap. And then we performed some data processing on the satellite data, such as atmospheric correction using Acolyte, and land and sea masking using Snap itself. And then we performed some band mathematics called NDVI and FDI, which I will explain later on, in order to highlight suspected plastics in the oceans. And then once these plastics are highlighted, we export it as text files and then convert it to JSON using a basic Python script. And then we display it into the interactive map, which I will show you later. So right now our system is incomplete, but it's a proof of concept for a hub where researchers can package their findings into something for the general public. And we believe that by bridging the gap that divides the research and the public, we can move quickly towards cleaning our seas and our oceans. So I'll go on next to the website demo. Hold on. So here is our website. It was built using React, Leaflet, and it says here React, Leaflet, and Love. Yes. So ayun, it's a pretty straightforward website. The blue highlights the potential garbage patches that we have detected using the downloaded satellite data. Like for instance, here in Ghana, in the shores of Accra, there are some patches here that seem to be plastics. And I highlight again that this method only its limitation is suspected plastics in coastal waters. Like we can't 100% be sure that they are plastics, but it doesn't hurt to be informed of its existence. So there are these patches here, and then if we zoom out even more, we can go somewhere else, like for instance in Scotland. And here are some more suspected plastics in the ocean there. And yeah, we have only highlighted a few areas, mostly from the research that the group has done. But if we move on to making some sort of automated system, we can highlight even more areas or have a even more intuitive interface with that. So apart from that, in this website, you can change the type of highlight between heat map or circular markers. Let's say I'll just show you the heat map. It just shows some sort of heat map for where the plastic is concentrated, or you can choose between that and circular markers. And there are also other pages like the FAQ if you want to read up, and a contact us page with our emails, of the emails of the group. You can access the website in messages-in-bottles.netify.app. It will be linked. It is linked actually in our Space Apps page here. So I think if you search for the group Manila Bay Sands in the Space Apps page, you'll be able to find this. Yeah. So the website is here. Anyway, so moving on past the website demo, I will next be going over a brief overview of how we collect the data and how we process the data to find the specific suspected plastics. So just an overview for that. First, we collect data from the Sentinel-2 satellite, specifically the L1C product. I will show you how we do that later. Second, we perform atmospheric correction using Acolyte, which is a dark spectrum filtering algorithm. It's available for download. Again, open source. Number three, we do land sea masking so that we filter out the land and we only focus on the sea. It's done in Snap. Four, we calculate the normalized difference vegetation index, or the NDVI, and the floating debris index, or the FDI. So the NDVI is basically a measure of how likely a certain measured pixel is in a satellite image to be essentially, it's like how is there a chance for it to be grass or to be vegetation. So basically, in a simpler sense, no, the higher the NDVI, the higher the chance it is that it's vegetation, and the lower it is, the lower chance it is for vegetation. And this floating debris index was developed by the team of Dr. Breeman. It is similar, except it measures the likelihood for floating debris like plastics, etc. And so we use a combination of both of them in order to determine if the detected pixel is plastic or not. So then once we determine the suspected plastics, we then mask the image and save the masked pixels as a text file. And that's the output that we have from Snap. And then from that text file, we convert it into JSON using a Python script. And then that JSON is directly imported with the coordinates, of course, directly imported into the React application. And because it's using Leaflet, it is basically just easily applied into the map. So just another thing to note, these are the equations we used for the normalized difference vegetation index. Yeah, tama. And the floating debris index. So if you're not familiar with how satellites work, well, specifically with the Sentinel-2 satellite, when it takes a satellite image, there are different bands with different wavelengths. And so these wavelengths correspond to different types of features. Like, for instance, the band of 665 nanometers corresponds to the color red, 450 would be, the 560 would be green, etc. And then there are other labels that correspond to things outside of the visible spectrum, such as 740 nanometers being what they call red edge 2, 833 nanometers what we call near infrared or NIR, and 1610 nanometers is SWIR. And then so ayun, from those we from the bands of the satellite, we can actually compute if the certain pixel, we can compute the NDVI and the FDI of a certain pixel. So we just do simple subtraction, division, and addition of the different bands in order to get the values in the pixel. So it's worth noting also that this NDVI and the FDI, they are taken from the paper of Dr. Breeman. And so, yeah. And what is this 56 over 315? It's basically this term here, which is the wavelength of each type of band. And because it's a scalar value, we decided to just simplify it into a scalar value. And another thing to note, from the paper of Dr. Breeman, what they realized was that certain types of materials detected have some sort of correlation between the NDVI and the FDI. And so, like, from this graph from their paper, we are able to, we did this visually because of lack of time constraints, but it should theoretically work as well. So what we did here was, with this box, we can set constraints such that if the detected NDVI is in between like 0.1 and 0.01 and 0.25 or something, and if the FDI is in between 0.018 and 0.07 or something like that, then it's most likely a plastic. So that is the type of math that we did between the different bands of the satellites. And so I will go over from the downloading of the data all the way to how we can process the data. So the data, as I mentioned, is downloaded using the Sci-Hub Copernicus Open Access Hub. And so this is a basically a visual aid for you to download the detected images from the Sentinel satellite. So what you can do is, for example, let's go to Manila. For example, we want to download a satellite image, a recent satellite image from the Manila Bay Area. And then you can select the type of product that you want. In this case, what we're looking for is Sentinel-2 product 1C, because that has the necessary bands that we need in order to detect plastics. So it might take a while, but once you search, it will show up here, and you can just simply download the data. It's that easy, and that's the magic of open source data, of open data. You can just easily download it and easily just come up with projects from it. And so while this is loading, I'm just going to go over what the downloaded data will look like. Oh, there, it's there. So you can see there's a preview of the image here, and then you can just download it using this download button. It's pretty big. Like most of them are around the 700 to 800 megabytes range. But yeah, that's how we downloaded the data. And then to process the data, we open it using the Snap program. So here, okay, so here, as an example, this is an island just off of the shore of Scotland. It's cropped so that I'll be able to show it to you quickly. And so what we did here was we compute for the NDVI and the FDI. So what we can do here is right click and then click band maths. And then we just type in the expressions. Like for example, okay, I'll do that some other time, but yeah. Once you're able to compute the NDVI, this is what it looks like. Well, I'll just turn off these masks. This is what it looks like. Essentially, the whiter it is, the higher the NDVI value is. And the lower it is, the darker it is, the lower the NDVI value is. Same thing for FDI. If you run the band maths from the equation I showed you earlier, this is what it will look like. So the lighter spots are more likely to be floating debris according to the FDI, and the darker spots are less likely to be floating debris. And so, again, based on the graph that we saw on the PowerPoint, we can limit the NDVI and the FDI visually, at least. Here, if you can see it here, it's NDVI greater than 0.02, NDVI less than 0.24, and FDI. And then if you turn it on, you can see that there are some red pixels. And so, again, as I mentioned, this method is good for detecting suspected plastics. And so it's not going to be 100% accurate. So what the team also did, what we did was we kind of double checked it with the actual image and what we could see in Google Earth. Like for instance, these we are not sure if they're boats, if they're a string of plastics. And so this is what we decided to include into the website here. As I said, near the Bay of Scotland, we just decided to include it here. And these are suspected plastics off the shore of Scotland. And as I said, and similarly, this is similar to this is the source research paper, by the way, finding plastic patches in coastal waters. And they found something similar on the shores of Scotland too. Well, actually, the photo here is near this is the shores of Scotland. So the suspected plastics are these white highlighted ones. And then I don't have the picture right now, but they have a picture wherein the island that I was looking at is here at the left, and then this is the suspected plastic. And so yeah, it's basically here. The thing that they saw was just here on the side. So yeah, from these detected red dots, we export them as a text file, and then we load them into the script, the Python script that converts it to JSON, and then we can directly load it into this web app. So as this is open source, the project code is available in our GitHub page. It is posted in the project page of the Space Apps Challenge. And one final note, for future plans and limitations, we could extend to more regions of interest and include higher variety of viewing options and stuff. So a lot of things with the UI, but we could also include other types of research. Like aside from floating debris, we could include like floating algae research or things like that, polluted waters. And then include that in the visualization of the website. So essentially, we want to achieve a community-driven expansion from researchers. And as I mentioned, limitations are this is not automated because the process right now includes a lot of human intervention, and the timestamp is non-uniform because the Sentinel data has a strict schedule. The Sentinel satellite has a strict schedule of getting data, and the satellite data resolution cannot detect patches smaller than that's supposed to be um, 10 meters because that is the resolution of Sentinel-2. We were supposed to use Sentinel-3 because Sentinel-3 actually goes over the Pacific Ocean. So we're hopeful that we could get the actual Great Pacific Garbage Patch. However, Sentinel-3 has a lower resolution. So it's like 1 kilometer or something, or 5 kilometers versus the 10 meters in the Sentinel-2. And we actually got in contact with the researchers, and they said that the bands in Sentinel-3 aren't as reliable as in Sentinel-2 for detecting plastics using their method. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Our project is available in the Space Apps Challenge website, and you can view our repositories here. Thank you very much.
Okay, so meron lang one question here. So, is the trash floating daw ba sila or below the sea? Question from
Trash.
John.
Thank you for the question. The trash on floating debris is usually near the surface. However, it's not exactly floating on top of the water because a lot of them parang yung weight nila medyo sakto lang na kunyari ito yung surface ng water, parang nandito or something. Kaya not a lot of satellites could actually detect the plastics because a lot of the wavelengths get reflected off the water. So the detection of plastics, especially in the Pacific Ocean, is very challenging.
Okay. So, may question ba kayo, Rainier? Or Lats?
So, meron akong question. Okay lang, magtanong, no? So,
yep.
Yeah. So, ako nga pala si Rain from PWA Pilipinas Community Relations Lead. So, bale, ang question ko lang yung if prepared ba kayo for kasi minention niyo din earlier sa future plans niyo kung yung question ko ay kung prepared kayo for future collaborations with the various communities sa Pilipinas if ever ma-develop niyo pa further, and pwedeng mag-set din ng meeting kasama kayo if ever.
At the moment, sir, most of us in our group are actually working full-time with different jobs now. Pero we are open to discussing it and open to talking about the future plans of this project.
So, balik kahit lang, representative na lang.
Yes. We're open to discussions for that.
Sige. Pwedeng pa-drop na lang din ng email ng sa team or sa na lang din. Pabigay na lang din.
Our contact information is also here actually in the website. So yeah. Yan. So
sige. Noted.
Okay. So thank you sa Manila Basins and congratulations. So makakasama pa natin sila mamaya sa short panel discussion natin, no? Ayan. So thank you, Luigi, sa pag-present.
Thank you very much.
And makasama natin siya mamaya. Okay, so yung screen natin.
So,
ayan.
Okay. So, ayan.
Ayan. So,
sige. Thank you, Luis, again for the talk, talagang yan sa mga gumamit ng space technologies. At saka yes, we really appreciate partnerships ganyan sa mga gawang Pinoy natin. For that, if you are interested to contact our community, ka na rin yung email natin for any kind of partnerships that we wanted. Ayan, welcome tayo, lalong-lalo na for next year, October 2 to 3, 2021. Okay, para matulungan din natin si Rainier sa kanyang mga partnerships. Ito ang ating email. Okay. So move on na tayo for the next presenter. Gumamit din sila, no? Kagaya ng nauna, gumamit din sila ng artificial intelligence. No? So, ayan, sige.
Ating
So,
ano rin sila, no? Global nominee rin sila. Ayan. So, ang ating team members for this one is si Juan Lorenzo Mercado, Jibril Den Española, Tanzel Kinango, tsaka si Alex Siwang. So, congratulations. Ayan. So, welcome natin on stage yung kanilang representative, si Lorenzo. So, hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm sharing my screen right now. So basically, okay, so here's our project. Basically, Backward AI was built from the reference to the Ilonggo word called bakod. Basically, it's a reference to fences. So basically, kasi when we talk about forest, kasi you could clearly see a border, and we could clearly distinguish that there are borders within our forest. That's why we really took this word into heart. So, and for our project, we really took into account that a lot of environmentalists are at risk when they protect our forests here in the Philippines. And this year alone, we have a lot of, like, our death rate for our environmentalists protecting our forests is really high. In 2018 alone, 30 of them actually died. And we could also know, and it's kind of common sense nowadays, that forests play a huge role in protecting our lands from climate change, and they account for 30% of actually removing human carbon dioxide emissions from our atmosphere. That's according to NASA. And so, yeah, so those are one of the three things that we really want to address with our project. So first, we wanted to address the safety of environmentalists. We also wanted to monitor how our urban landscapes changes and how it affects forests over time. And of course, addressing illegal deforestation, because our module actually detect deforestation activities. So creating this model really helps us to monitor and protect our forests through a system that do not need for us to be present in these dangerous areas, while giving us the power to report these activities and deploy as determined, allowing a safe and efficient monitoring system to protect our forests. So how exactly did we do this? So we actually did this through a machine learning design. So our system clearly starts from a human professional. So a human professional basically classifies all these images and denotes, categorizes them into different categories. Let's say we're gonna group this satellite images into images that show mining, these show forests, these show habitats and buildings from a satellite image point of view. And these are processed into a thing called ResNet 18. It's an AI model, pre-trained. Basically, what it does is it parses all these information, and basically it kind of turns itself into a brain to know that it can classify all these sorts of images together. And with that, the model is actually turned into something that you can infer and basically make predictions that, oh, this model, this satellite images have forests in it. These satellite images have a lot of urban lands in it, and there's barely any forest in it. Or it can even detect bodies of water from satellite images. And it also goes into a feedback loop. What it does is when it gets new information, it basically puts it back for a human professional to classify it. And it's then processed again so that our model can actually be more accurate. So it was built into 3 phases. So it started with model training. So at first, we really had to train our model so that it can identify all these satellite images. I mean, one forest of this continent can't be the same forest of the another continent, right? So that's what we did at first. Next, so of course, we had to test the model, identifying its strong points, its weak points, and of course, identifying its accuracy in recognizing all these satellite images provided. Then next, we also deployed this model, and you can actually test it out. It's in backwardai.co. And the model was exported to a Django web-based framework so that it can be used on a website so that anyone can use this model into identifying different satellite images used to infer and predict the activities happening around your area. The model was built on the idea of neural networks. So basically, it's a concept wherein the machine can actually process data like how a human brain does. Um, what happens here is that basically the machine trains itself to identify and predict all these satellite images and identify all these classifications and actually translate it um, into numbers wherein the machine can understand. So that's called convolutional neural networks, wherein these images were translated into numbers and all that data so that the machine can actually parse it by itself. And we also use this thing called transfer learning. We didn't create the model from scratch. We used a pre-trained model called ResNet 18. Basically, it was a pre-trained model that actually parses different kinds of images before, but then we basically used it to parse our data or satellite images from NASA so that it can predict satellite images from different areas of the world. And yeah, ResNet, I've been seeing ResNet a bunch of times. It's basically an architecture used with 18 layers of parsing so that it can be trained more than 1 million images from the ImageNet database. And then we use this architecture so that it can be used to parse these satellite images from our data set. And we also use PyTorch. Basically, PyTorch is an open source machine learning library. And this machine learning library was used into our prediction model so that such as computer vision, so that it can identify these satellite images that we placed in our model. So the model that we created was actually trained about 4 times, or scientifically called 3 epochs. And we actually got an accuracy rate of 95%. It was trained only for 3 hours, or more or less 3 hours. So you can see now we have a lot of things that we can do for the future pa. What if we trained it with a huge data set, or we could train it longer? Our model can be so much accurate than it is today, even if it's just at 95% with 2 hours of training. So the endless possibilities for accuracy is really there. One problem that we're trying to solve right now is actually biome identification. So what is biome identification and how does it play into our model? Our model was trained using images from the Brazilian rainforest. So basically, we trained our model to identify forest activities in a tropical setting. What our model wasn't trained for yet was for biomes such as the Sahara Desert, the deserts in the Middle East, and even the Arctic, North Poles and South Poles. So that's what we're working on currently, and that's what our model is being trained for right now. The application of our model is really divided into 3 things. One is really to ensure that it can be used for open source monitoring. Not just me as an aspiring data scientist, but also a kid who wants to see, let's say he lives in Manila and he wants to see how deforestation really occurred here in Manila. And he can use our model to really see the idea of what's really happening in our area. Another one is for the safety of environmentalists. Environmentalists here in the Philippines have to go on field just to protect our forest, to identify if there are deforestation activities happening. But what if they can just sit here in the computer and identify where these deforestation activities actually occur? You know, and when these deforestation activities occur, that's the time wherein they can sprung into action, and in a more safer manner, because they can identify what kind of deforestation activities are occurring. Is it dangerous, or is it just something by accident or natural causes? So that's one thing we can address to help our environmentalists here locally. Another one is environmental accountability. With this model, we can actually use it to identify deforestation activities, right? But with using this for environmental accountability, we can actually hold our local officials accountable for their actions. They could be saying that they're protecting the forest, but then clearly when you parse the data into our model, it can identify a lot of deforestation activities. using this model, you can actually tell them that, oh, you're not doing a good job. Maybe we should do something else so that we can really protect our forests properly and the way we really need today. Um, another, there are some limitations, technically speaking, as well. Another one is it cannot currently identify direct causes of change. So you really need a human professional to identify changes over time, and that's one of the things that we have to identify as well. And the model right now can only use repeated patterns as what it was trained for. So let's say you send a selfie to our model, it has the chance of actually identifying you as a road or like water. And that's something we really need to work on moving forward. So moving forward, we're actually planning to implement two things into our algorithm. One is data augmentation. Basically, we kind of um, it's the idea of doing something to our data set so that the model, what it sees before, is different. So maybe we can adjust the contrast, we can adjust the brightness of the image. So that's data augmentation. Another one is progressive resizing. So it's basically a transfer learning technique popularized by Jeremy Howard that sequentially resizes the image while training. So it can basically stretch it or resize it smaller or resize it bigger so that it can incorporate larger scale or smaller scale models into the weight of our artificial intelligence model. So yeah, basically this model was used through Landis and Modis. I can actually show you right now. Basically, if you go to the Modis website, you just click on NASA Visible Earth Image Gallery here. Then you can search for, let's say, Manila. And it will actually show you Manila. And I have actually downloaded it. I downloaded this image. So if you go to our website called backwardai.co, it redirects you to this page. Then you just press Get Started. Then you just upload an image. I downloaded the Manila. So this one was the exact same thing as I got from NASA. So if you go here, you press Annotate. And you can actually see that the weather is clear, the habitation, there are a lot of habitations here. But we also have smaller patches of forest still being seen here in Manila. And the model can also identify if there are a lot of roads within the image. And of course, bodies of water. So you have Laguna de Bay here, and we have Manila Bay here. So yeah, that's basically backward AI. And yeah, moving forward, I think we just really need to work on our the accuracy of our model, and open source really plays a huge role in that because we use open source data into training our model, and we also use it to to allow us to test our model. Is it predicting our model correctly or is it not? So yeah, if you want to see our model in place, we actually have a GitHub repository. So you can just go to github.com/alswang18/backwardai. So yeah, that's basically it for backward AI. Back to you, Lance.
Ayun. Okay, thank you once again, Enzo, no, sa isang napakagandang presentation about backward AI. So speaking
Mayroon
of...
shoutout.
May shout out si Jessica Valencia. Go!
Oh.
Loren. Ayan. Sino kaya yan? Yan ang tanong. Yeah, tayo dyan. Okay. So, sabi nga ni Enzo, no, ang bakod ay galing sa Ilonggo word, no? Tama?
Yes po.
Speaking of Ilonggo, no? Speaking of Ilonggo, Andre, wala, hindi ko pa nababalitaan na may nangyari sa Iloilo kanina. Oo, no? Kaya kino-congratulate natin, no? Mula sa PWA Pilipinas, kino-congratulate natin si Miss Rabia Mateo na kinoronahang Miss Universe Philippines. Ayan. So,
Yeah. May
yan ha.
questions ka?
Kaya,
Mhm.
oo ha. Okay. Sige. So,
Ako,
siguro
walang question.
next. Wala na.
Mamaya na lang.
Mamaya.
Sige.
Mamaya magtatanungan tayo. Ako marami akong gusto itanong. Sabay ganun.
Handa pala.
Nakahanda na agad no? Pero nakita yung mga unang project natin tungkol to sa gumagamit artificial intelligence, no? Yung una, puro equation yung nakita ko. Talagang lumugo yung aking ilong. Okay, sige.
Sige.
Siguro, sa next tayo, no? Next project naman. Okay.
Salamat, Lorenzo.
So much.
So, mamaya makasama natin siya ulit.
Mga project natin. Sige, salamat, Enzo. Ayan. Sige. So, ang susunod na project na ipe-present ay ang tinatawag na meme theory. Tama ba yung
parang meme theory?
Tatanungin natin sila mamaya kung paano.
Mamaya malalaman natin kung ano yung tama, Andre, no? Ikaw ba, Andre, anong palagay mo dyan?
Ha?
Anong palagay mo dyan? Ano yung tamang pagkakabigkas dyan?
Kasi parang yan parang Mercury, di ba? Meme curry. Kaya pag curry, parang naisip ko
Ha? Hindi kasi nasa isip ko, parang meme, tapos curry, dahil mahilig ako dyan sa curry na yan. Chicken. Diba ikaw na, nag-iba na.
Nag-iba na.
Oo, nag-iba na tayo. Okay, sige. Sige, Andre.
Ayan. So, yung team members natin to, girl power to. Sila si Real Florence Dalangin, tsaka si Daphne Joaquin. So, welcome natin sila sa stream. So, hello.
Hello po.
Hello.
Ito natin po about yung sa
mga viewers.
Hello po sa mga nanonood po.
Nasa TV na ako na. Ayan. Sino yung
share ko po.
Ano ba talaga ang pronunciation niyan? Diyos ko na.
Meme theory po. It's because kami pong dalawa, we have a culture of parang being free-spirited, so we don't want to take ourselves seriously. We want to have fun. We want to enjoy ourselves while creating such projects naman po. So, parang fun side lang namin sa team. Yung ganun po.
Actually, pag hackathon naman talaga parang more on having fun talaga.
Yes po.
Fun and food. Yan. Mga M's of
no? Kung nawalan dahil sa pandemyang to sige. Start na tayo.
Fun, food, friends. Yan.
Fun, friends. Sige. Yan na, makikita na natin.
Tsaka effort feedback.
Yan,
okay.
Makikita na.
Whenever you're ready.
Nakita po ba yung screen? Okay na po ba?
Yes, nasa stream siya.
Okay po.
Sige
Sige po. So, good evening po. We're Team Meme Theory from the 2020 NASA International Space Apps Challenge, and we are here to present our project called Retrieve. So, to reintroduce ourselves, I am Daphne Joaquin. I am currently a third-year computer science student from the University of Santo Tomas.
And I'm Dalangin. I am a second-year CIS cybersecurity major at CUNY Borough College. And the challenge that we submitted our project to was Home Planet at Your Fingertips. And the specific problem we wanted to solve is the fact that there's so many data sets and information out there, whether it be from NASA's data sets available or just open source projects. And it can be difficult for data scientists and other, beginner users to gather that data, find them, and just narrow them down for their project. So our solution is Retrieve, which is a web app that will help those users narrow down the results.
So this will our prototype for retrieve.
So this is the landing page. When the user goes to our site, they will get information about our web app, the data sets available, how will they be able to use it. They would also be able to contribute data sets if they want to, and they will also be able to make a profile that will allow them to save the data sets, connect with other users, and discover new data.
So upon registering or make an account in this website, you'll be taken to this page, which basically shows the different categories of data sets you can find, such as earth science, atmospheric science. Uh, and and also here you can see like what visualization tools that you can use for your data sets. Then we also included a category for the agencies that contributed, such as NASA, CSA, JAXA, etc. Then we can also include the trending datasets that are popular among data scientists or natural scientists alike. So, so upon if you're gonna click, let's say a category called Earth Science, you'll be taken to this page. You'll see here like how like the data sets that are available. Here at the left side, you can see the subcategories of earth science that you like that can be like are tagged in these data sets. And also here at the left side, you can see like the agencies and the number of data sets that have contributed to this specific field of science. So as you can see here, we used the data sets from JAXA as well as their imagery to showcase what their data set is all about. Yeah.
And this is what the sign up page would look like. Users will be able to make a username and set up a password. And this is also a part where they'll be able to search the data sets, so they can enter some keywords or use the filters already available. I mean, these are just the ones at the bottom are just suggestions, like maybe they're the trending like search results, and they will also be able to select those.
So let's say you were gonna click on a specific data set, the page would look like something like this. It can show the title. You can have an option to download the data set on your local machine. You can have the option to visualize this data. And in this paragraph, it shows like a brief summary of what the data set is all about, the sources, and additional information like date updated, where it can be applied, citations or references they use to gather these data sets. So as you scroll down, you'll see different visualization tools that you can use for this particular data set. And you can also modify these tools to cater to your specific needs.
And as we mentioned earlier, users will also be able to contribute a data set to our system. So say they realize that a data set is not in the system yet, they can add it there. They can add a lot of information like the author, the description, and the more information that they put in, it will be much easier for other users to get that data because it'll be more filtered in the results page, and this is where they'll be able to do that. And since users are able to make an account, this is what the profile page would look like. They can add in their socials and connect with people. They can save their favorite data sets that they've collected from doing their research. They'll also be able to see the contributions that they've made. So here's some examples. And then since you're also able to connect with other users, this would be the place where you can see all of them. And this is just like an about page to let users learn more about it. And the information on there is basically what's on our Space Apps project page. So it's the same thing.
So upon the creation of our project, we've come across limitations such as we see this project as generally a very, very big idea. And I don't think it will be feasible for just the two of us. By the way, in our team, there's only like 2 members. I don't think it's feasible for us to execute or even accomplish such a big project. However, we still decided to put up a public code repository such as GitHub, so that if other people or other inspiring like people who share the same ideas as us can also contribute, suggest some ideas to our project, they can do so. And also, we've put up this repository because in case we want to continue working on this in the future, at least we have a place to start with.
Yeah, and it also connects with the whole theme of open source technologies. The availability of GitHub and all the repositories there, people are able to contribute their own input and code, but they can also access those for their own projects, like in terms of APIs, frameworks, and different libraries like React, like that sort of thing. And as we were making this project, we also realized that open source isn't just in terms of code; it's also about design, because as we were building the project, we needed a lot of graphics for it, and one resource that we're able to use was Undraw, and it's an open source illustration resource where you'd be able to find a bunch of graphics and pictures to use for your project. And that just goes to show that open source is very helpful for the community, and people can just contribute to anything and help other people.
So as what Cyril mentioned, another good tool that you can use to promote open source technology is the use of code repositories such as GitHub. I think these code repositories are very, very popular among developers because it invokes a sense of community and collaboration with these people. So, for example, this is our GitHub repository for the Space Apps entry. So, as you can see, it's all very public. Anyone can look through it. Anyone can add any suggestions or contributions as they want. And also, another resource that inspired this project is through the use of the public resources that the NASA gave us in the Space Apps Challenge. As you can see here, we are given data resources, for example, NASA Earth data websites. Then there are from the other partner agencies such as JAXA, CSA. So that really inspired us to make this project because learning how to deal with data is such it's such a popular thing right now. It's a trend. And we're inspired to make something similar, not just for the data scientists themselves, but also to create, ease, for these Earth scientists to explore and manipulate their data. So yeah, basically that's it. Yun lang po.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay.
oo.
Sige,
Meron naman tayo shoutout ulit, no? Ito na, nakapigil to kanina, pero sobrang proud daw sa'yo si Justin. Sabi
Okay.
ni
Parang kilala ko to, Andre, no? Parang kilala ko tong si Justin Clemente. Parang kilala ko. Oo, parang kilala ko to. Parang sumali din yata to eh. Noong 2018.
Oh.
Magkakilala kayo, Daphne? You know each other?
Yes po. Ano po, senior ko po siya sa department. So, kasi po, we're both computer science students. So, at that time, he was a fourth year student. I was a first year. So, kakilala kami through like organizations, competitions din po.
Hello daw sa atin.
Oo nga. Alam mo, napansin ko rin dito sa presentation nila Daphne and Cyril, gumamit din sila ng GitHub, no, as a repository. And ayan, baka mamaya pwede nilang ipaano yan, no?
Oo.
Pwede pull request din sa iba, no, para ma-improve, ano? Or including yung gawa na Luigi and Enzo. Sige nga, ano pa, Andre?
Start na ba tayo ng panel discussion?
Yeah, sige. Start na tayo. Okay. Tawagin na natin muli si Luigi ng Manila-based Sands, Enzo ng Bacon AI, at saka si Daphne and Cyril from Meme Curie. Yan. Bago ang lahat, tanungin ko muna itong may tanong lang. Sige, may tanong ba kayo? Ako muna. Sige. May tanong lang ako kay Luigi kasi nahihiwagaan ako sa kanyang pangalan, no? Sa pangalan ng kanyang
It's a me.
Bakit? Why did you choose Manila-based Sands as the name mo? Of your project?
It is in reference to the newly elected beach of Manila. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yung beach na wala na. Pawala na.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like Marina Bay Sands. Wala lang. Play on words lang.
Sa Singapore, no? Sige. Ito, may tanong lang ako, ha? Sige, for you guys, again, for those who are listening right now, if you have questions to our panelists sa Space Apps, tanong lang kayo dito sa Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget to visit again the website. Ano yun? Ito, Hacktoberfest at digitalocean.com. Mag-apat lang, no? 4 lang na pull request, bibigyan kayo ng free t-shirt. Gusto nyo ba ng mga goodies? Punta lang tayo dito sa Hacktoberfest at pwapilipinas.org. At saka, if you want $100 worth of DigitalOcean credits, please visit this URL here. And if you want to partner with us, visit or shoot us an email at nasaspacehubsph@gmail.com. Okay, sige. So may tanong lang ako each and every one of you guys. Paano ba nakatulong yung pagiging open source ng NASA data in developing your project? Sige, let's start with Luigi.
So because the data is really easy to access, very easy to download, sobrang nakatulong sa amin in replicating what we saw in the research paper of Sina Dr. Breeman. Kasi yung mga nakuha po nilang satellite images, may specific na location, tsaka may specific na timestamp. And because of the yung depth ng pag-store ng data sa Copernicus Open Hub, it's very easy to filter out yung date, to filter out yung area, ganon. So we can see we can at least try our best to see what they saw or something, or at least to the best of our ability, try and replicate it, ganon. So apart from that, apart from getting the data easily, it's really because the data is easily available, it's so easy to think of other topics, to think of things to do, kasi parang a possible flow to think of a topic would be to look at the available data sets and then go from there, instead of starting from a problem then looking for data tapos parang oh no, hindi pala available yung data, ganun. Kaya parang if all the data is available, it's very easy to come up with things to do.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Luigi. Enzo, paano naman nakatulong yung open source?
So
We
back
hope.
when AI basically relies on open source because again we use just like Luigi, we use open source data into training our artificial intelligence model. So basically, kasi with satellites being sent up in space, diba, that's really expensive. I can't read. I mean, as an individual, I can't do that. Governments have to do that, and them actually making the data from these satellites, these expensive satellites, open allows us to train our model to use the model for good use. In this case, identifying deforestation all around the world.
Good. Okay. Si kay ano naman, kay Daphne.
So yung benefit of using such open source
Open source.
technologies, I mean, it really encourages thinking now that you have all of these resources available, like at your disposal. Parang nakakaisip ka rin ng you gain more confidence about creating your idea because you gather all of these resources and to think how can we benefit from these. So as we mentioned kanina, project namin, we use different kinds of like open sources sites, I guess. So yung mga graphics, yung mga frameworks that we use for coding. So it really made it very, very convenient for us to develop our project po.
Good. Okay, Cyril, do you want to add more?
I mean, because we also use open source technologies for the graphics in our app. So the resource that we use, Undraw, it really helped us to make graphics to put on our mockup. We didn't have to draw anything or, use our own thing. So, that was helpful to do our app within the allotted time and focus more on, just building it.
Okay, good. Andre, ano pa yun? Baka may tanong kayo, Andre Lem Rain.
Rainier.
So, yeah. Ano ko lang din kasi din naka-member ako sa Binistrap mapping daw. Parati kami nagamit din ng usually sa OpenStreetMap and yan. Tina-translate din or niloload namin din yung data to QGIS. Pero din for other purposes din. So, nagamit niyo na ba yung OpenStreetMap sa din inyong sa data niya pag dina-download sa as an open source? Naisip niyo na yun or something?
Kanino mo tinatanong yan?
Sa kanila or
lahat?
Oo.
Sige. Sige, Luigi.
Yung sa amin po kasi sir, it's yung project namin doesn't involve like direct street views. So, actually we didn't really look at OpenStreetMap kasi po direct satellite data po yung kailangan namin. But I think if mas involved dun yung tinitignan namin, like more direct land level, street level views, ganun, I think we would have considered using OpenStreetMap because of its easy availability and stuff.
Enzo.
For backward AI po, we don't actually need to use street maps po kasi of course our model is actually based on identifying deforestation. So it's really built on needing aerial view satellite images rather than OpenStreetMaps. So yun, that's why we opted for Landsat and MODIS of NASA because we really needed the aerial view.
So,
Daphne.
We also didn't use such technology because we want to rely on getting directly the resources from NASA themselves. So we use yung mga datasets nila, yung mga satellite imagery nila, we want to utilize what they have. Tapos our goal is to like interpret them with conveniently for other users. And so, ayun po, we didn't use Yung ganun po.
Yan, thank you. Thank you sa feedback mo.
Sige. Ako may tanong ako sa inyong lahat din. Kasi last year, kaka-approve pa lang ni President Duterte ng Republic Act 11363. Hulaan nyo kung hindi, joke lang. Hindi, ang tawag doon ay Philippine Space Act, no? Establishing our own national space agency like NASA from the United States. Siguro may question to the four of you is what makes you excited that our country will have its own space agency? Ayan. Sige, unahin natin si Luigi or ganun na lang yung ating natin. Okay.
Order of presentation.
Sige
po. For me actually, what ako na-excite dito kasi yung mga mahilig sa space, yung mga scientists mahilig sa space stuff, they don't really have to venture far and out in order to apply their knowledge, especially yung mga mga nag-aaral ng astrophysics dito, mga ganon. Kasi like, di ba, for the longest time parang wala naman tayong masyadong opportunities. Tapos recently, dumating na yung mga diwata sa sa Triple E ng UP Diliman, yung space stuff doon. So parang it's slowly starting to build up na yung community ng space research dito. Although I'm not, honestly, kasi di ako super familiar with how it was before. Parang all I can see is like how it is now. Pero hopefully na like in the future, parang mas dumami yung space-related scientists dito.
Sige. So,
for me, on a personal note, I think it's really important that we have our own space agency. Not necessarily just to have like a space agency, but of course for the Philippines to use it, especially when we're a disaster-prone country. So we really get a lot of typhoons here, and satellite imagery really helps in identifying how we can prepare for such disasters coming pa lang. The Philippines Space Agency is really a stepping stone for future possibilities and how we can use space data, not only like space technology, but space data in itself for how to increase our quality of life here in the Philippines.
Good. About you, Daphne?
I'm also enthusiastic that the Philippine government would decide to put up a Philippine Space Agency, not only because it's for space exploration, stuff like that. It's also beneficial for anything that occurs on Earth, especially in our country. As what Lorenzo said, we are situated on an Earth where there's a lot of natural disasters happening, like typhoons, earthquakes, volcanoes. So I think the Philippine Space Agency would really alleviate these issues in our country. But I wouldn't say I would be confident that it would be fulfilled because we don't really know how much funding it goes into creating a big agency such as the Philippine Space Agency po. Pero there's hope naman po that it could be useful for our country.
Okay. Cyril?
Yeah, if the space agency goes through, a great benefit to it is that, Filipino developers will be able to showcase their talents, make contributions for the community. And, it'll just, help out a lot of people and, allow for people who enjoy programming and, space to, have a job related to it.
Okay. Ayan. Ikaw, Andre. Pinakasagot ka naman.
Siguro,
sabi mo doon sa Philippine Space
Ayan.
Agency?
Siguro parang ano na lang. Siguro ano na lang, no, i-generate, ano yung parang take away nyo or parang learnings nyo sa pagsali sana sa Space Apps Challenge? Kumaga ano yung mga like may soft skills ba kayong natutunan or na-acquire, mga ganun. Na pwede nyong i-share sa mga nanonood ngayon siguro para sa next na ano natin, Space Apps, ma-inspire sila. So, ayun. Si Luigi muna siguro.
Okay. I think like I speak for the entire group when I say that yung one thing we learned dito sa Space Apps Challenge is that you can be anything. Kasi ano most of us in the group are have a computer science background. Actually, 4 out of 5 of us graduated from UPD computer science. Plus one of us has a integrated engineering background in Japan. And yet, yung project namin is mostly geodetic engineering. So parang like throughout the entire weekend, we learned about how to use the open data, how to use Snap. So ayun, yung main takeaway namin is you can be anything if you put your heart to it. And it's mostly thanks to the accessibility of data and yung pagiging open source ng mga software. That's for me.
Enzo?
For me naman, I guess it's really to note na you can do anything with what you want. Kasi I'm actually not a computer science degree holder. I'm actually still currently in college studying business. Jibril, another person in our team, is actually studying business as well. And we didn't come from a computer science background. We basically, 4 of us just got together, and me and Jib actually just learned programming, start of end of March, and yet here we are talking in this forum. So it's really when it comes to data and all that, I guess the thing that you really have to be aware of is that you really have to start somewhere. Like me and Jim started from basic hello world from Python, and it was really a daunting start. So it's really about pursuing the things that you really want to, and using it for good, especially now, because more than ever, data is really being explored, and it's being used for all the right reasons, and we should take advantage of that.
Daphne?
So my takeaway from joining the Space Apps Challenge is that it really encourages that anyone can join this hackathon, including yung mga youth. I think they're more encouraged to join these kinds of competitions, just because they can have ideas, they can apply what they've learned in school. As what we're doing right now, me and Cyril, we're currently students in college, so we join hackathons to apply what we've learned and to solve issues like the ones like being questioned from the Space Apps Challenge. So we want to improve our problem solving skills, our critical thinking, creativity. And I think, it's really a good experience na parang as a start, parang ganda na ng experience mo as a student na you would join these competitions na improve din yung skills mo. So what you've learned from the Space Apps, na-apply mo rin sa school mo. At least you know how to collaborate more. You can use what you've learned from Space Apps and apply it on your academics as well. So I think that's really a really, really good experience for me.
Si Cyril naman.
I mean, honestly, same thing as what Daphne said. What I learned that hackathons are really helpful to, teach you about, not just about coding really, but it's also about group collaboration, problem solving skills, being able to adapt quickly. Because we're in 2 different time zones. We also have to figure out how to collaborate with that. And yeah, it's also transferable to to school and in real life. And yeah, also hackathons are also a great way to start building projects, because I'm also kind of the same as Lorenzo. Like I did start learning how to code around like April or something when the pandemic happened, and you know, Daphne and I just kept joining hackathons so that we can build projects and you know um, practice how to code HTML, just front end development and all that. But Space Apps was a nice challenge because we were able to, try to solve an actual real life problem.
Mm-mm. Speaking of collaboration, given na virtual siya, unlike past hackathons na magkakasama kayo, friends pa ba kayo ng mga ka-teams niyo? Or I mean, paano niyo na-solve yung communication barrier given na kasi 'di ba, given na may online class ngayon and minsan may mga activities pa rin yan na you have to collaborate with ano. So how are you able to parang somehow bridge yung gap, like yung virtual gap between teammates? Ayun, si Luigi muna.
Uh, so me and my teammates are actually friends in real life. So it wasn't that hard naman to maintain communication with them. But in terms of the hackathon, we made heavy use of Discord. So yeah, so if you remember like sa mga mentoring sessions or something, may ingay sa background and something. Yun kami yun. Yeah. So Discord, very, very helpful into keeping constant communication with friends.
Mm. Enzo, paano naman yung sa team niyo?
For us naman, basically we know each other naman rin in real life. Me, Tanzo, Alec, and Jib basically stayed up because Alec was also studying in Canada kasi. So it was hard for us to adjust as well in the time zone. So each of us had to really adjust to each other. But in terms of virtual connection and stuff like that, it was a really fun experience because basically we just at home where the comfort is, tapos we just kept coding. In terms of coding environment naman, we use GitHub. So like a Git repository is really one of the best ways to collaborate with one another when you program. So like when one codes, it doesn't really mess up the other code of someone else's. So it's a really important skill na you have to learn for programming.
Daphne, ikaw naman.
So I think for in our team, like the both of us, we have a long distance relationship or like or friendship namin. Like Cyril is in New York, I'm in Manila. So I think the benefit of going everything virtual is that despite all the time zones, you can still collaborate even if you're not there physically. You can see each other progresses online. You can see like how they're doing their like catch up on each other. Me and her were like junior high school friends, but then she migrated to the New York. It's like senior high school, something like that. So honestly, and Cyril was the one who encouraged me to join hackathons because if it wasn't for the virtual platform, like it really encouraged me to try this out and improve my skills and such. But
May add ka, Cyril?
Well, yeah, I mean, like the hackathons are a great way for us to just, meet up every weekend because now that everything's virtual, there's a hackathon every weekend. So we try to join all those. And, it's a great way for us to talk and catch up. And
yeah.
So did you attend a hackathon this weekend?
No, but we only attended workshops, but
Yeah.
did.
We couldn't fully participate because of our busy schedule. Probably next week we might join another hackathon.
Ayun. So I have a question to Cyril. No? Kasi you mentioned yata in the earlier presentation that your background's in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about what
I mean, kasi po, like, I'm not yet taking classes about cybersecurity because I start taking them junior year and I'm still a sophomore, so I don't really have much knowledge about it yet. But I'm just like looking around, trying online courses to get a head start from my courses.
do you think that open source and developing a secure platform will coexist?
Um,
Or
yeah, for sure. Because like there's similar events to hackathons for cybersecurity, like capture the flag. So I guess that's one way for people to, in a way, practice how to, you know, de- develop, a good security system and maybe find um, like vulnerabilities to other repositories. If they participate in these capture the flags, maybe they can also see that in other people's code, and I guess that's one way it can coexist.
ito pa, may question ako kay Luigi and Enzo kasi your solutions presented have been you use AI and data science, no? Tama ba? So why did you what makes you interested in the field of data science and analytics? Sige nga, Luigi.
Um, hmm. Actually, yung project namin mismo, we didn't really make any AI model, pero the paper that we based it off of, may AI sila.
Ayun.
Like we kind of just use what they outputted.
Hmm.
For me personally, among all the fields of computer science, talagang AI data science is what I'm really interested in because because it's magical. That's actually basically like most of what I can say is that it's very magical, like how essentially something that you can implement in Microsoft Excel, like the back propagation algorithm, you can do it in Excel, diba? Something like that can actually do something really big, like ayun, like detect plastics in the ocean. And in fact, actually, the algorithm that they use to detect plastics in the ocean isn't even that big. It doesn't use deep learning. It's more of like it's a basic naive Bayes approach. Um, so ayun, also another thing that amazes me is how you don't really need to go deep into the technical stuff of AI in order to achieve great results. Like for example, you don't need like because at deep learning it takes a lot of it takes a lot of resources. Like you kind of need a pretty good GPU in order to train it quickly and run it quickly. But like sometimes a simple naive Bayes or a simple Markov model will work, like random forest, things like that. So I'm sorry, I'm throwing a bit of might be buzzwords to some, pero ayun, that's why the field of AI amazes me. And it's also its practicality in different fields. Like actually a research interest for me now is the application of AI to music. So like how it can use like analyze music, make melody generation. So like even in fields that are remotely distant from computer science and stuff, it's very applicable to AI and data science. So that's why it's very interesting to me.
Oy, good to know that you're mentioning research on music, no? AI on music. Kasi from what I know, there's some professors at faculty at De La Salle University or who are interested in this field. Which you might be interested to collaborate.
That's very nice to know.
Nakichismis ako. Nakichismis ako sa Lasal. Sige.
Thank you,
Pakinggan natin. Sige, pakinggan natin si Enzo naman. What makes you interested in AI?
What made me interested in AI? Well, first of all, to talk about that, I have to get into the purpose of why I got into this field anyway. So basically, I'm a very lazy person. So my conception of artificial intelligence before was like automation. So like, I don't want to keep doing all these emails and all of that. So yeah, that got me into artificial intelligence. But then later on, I realized that that's not how artificial intelligence works. So like artificial intelligence basically on a high level note kind of help us parse the millions of data that we already have right now and make virtually new insights out of them and make it more efficient in understanding them. Um, it's more of the understanding data aspect that really resonates with me because first of all, um, I mean, opening an Excel sheet of millions of data would be like really daunting if you're gonna do it manually, diba? So imagine if you could just let the machine do it for you, and basically next thing you know, you could predict, oh, who's gonna win the next NBA game out of nowhere, and it comes out right, diba? So that's how interesting artificial intelligence is to me. It makes our life easier in such a way that we can gain more insights and actually do more with the data that we have. So, especially with using this data to do good. So, let's say in terms of sports, we analyze previous data so that we can make our teams better and change the outcome. So, and nothing is really for sure naman kasi na it's gonna be correct every single time, diba? So we really have the chance to change our path in the future if we are able to make use of historical data into improving our lives.
All right. I'm just curious naman na Daphne and Cyril, no? Na you have created a project that would make data visualization easier. Huh? Tama.
Mm.
So
Yes po.
why did you
Yes po.
chose to create that kind of project na you want to offer the public easier access to data? Ayan.
It's because during my college time, I really gained an interest in AI and machine learning as well. So in our class, we're given resources like yung mga data sets online. So yung mga machine learning repositories where it's being used as an example in class. So it really inspired me to make something similar. Pero hindi siya exclusive just for data scientists, but also for like anyone who is interested to fully utilize their data to interpret it, manipulate it, whatever. So parang as what Luigi said, AI and machine learning, it shouldn't intimidate you because of these mathematical models that we're using, but you can see it as something that could be useful to cater to your needs, kumbaga. Kaya ina-inspire ako kasi ang dami ng mga websites that does what our project does, but we can't really see anything that is related to earth science, yung mga natural sciences. So it got me thinking, oh, why not make a similar website that does exactly that, but more for other scientists po. Kaya ganun po.
Good. Ayan. Andre, may add pa tayo?
Last question na lang siguro, no? May naisip ka ba, Michael?
Ano na lang, sige. Siguro, hingi na tayo ng last words or any advice or last words sa ating mga panels ngayon. Okay. Sige, let's start Luigi. Ayan, any last words?
Last words. Una-una, I'd just like to thank everyone from the Space Apps team for organizing the Space Apps. Parang that includes you guys, tsaka yung organizing team from abroad. Tapos I'd like to thank my teammates din. Adele, Paco, Pio, Celine, and Luis. Especially kay Paco kasi he's all the way from Japan right now. And yet nakasali siya sa hackathon ngayon. Kaya mahalaga din yung online hackathon kasi that's how we were able to keep in contact with him because he's all the way in Japan. Well, anyway, ayun. So apart from that, if anyone is intimidated to join things like this, yung advice ko lang is to just do it. I mean, no harm naman. Like even if you don't get selected, at least it's a learning experience, ganun. Pero ayun, just do it. Don't be afraid. Kasi especially in things like this, we have some great mentors to help you out if you're really lost. Like if you're not sure if pwede gamitin yung software mo or something, ganun. You can just go ahead and ask them. So ayun, just do it. And yun ulit, thank you very much for having us tonight sa PWA, sa Hackathon, sa Hacktober.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Luigi. Enzo, any final words or advice?
Okay, so thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our project. Actually, we didn't expect now we would get this far. Like the day we started, we were just like, oh, let's build something. Oh, then we ended up not being nominated globally, and we were just like, whoa. So yeah, I just want to thank my team, Alec, Jib, Tanzel. My team was incredibly. I don't know how to describe it because like I'm basically a beginner, and yet I got this far. So um, from complete zero programming to a working knowledge, to just push this into deployment is really something that one for the books, to be honest. So my advice on talaga to anyone, you don't really have to be the best in everything. In fact, when I back in high school, I wasn't the first person to be like nominated for a leadership position. I'm not the first person to be nominated for like an academic award, and yet you still have the opportunity to build something good for everyone else. So if you really have a passion to do something, pursue it no matter how lazy thinking it is, because you're never gonna get there if you don't give it a shot. Yun lang naman siguro. I think that's really the best way that you can pursue your dreams.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Enzo. Daphne.
I would also like to thank you, Space Apps, for organizing such event. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to have this project. And also, it really encourages us to just be yourself, just apply whatever knowledge that you want to contribute. You can absolutely do so. And you know, it's like one day you just want to contribute, at least you can have a platform for everybody to know what your idea is all about. And I think this hackathon really gave it, a people space to really showcase what they can do. And then it's also about taking risks as well. It's because like we also didn't expect that we'd get to top three. Me and Sir were just thinking like, okay, we want to do this. Yeah, let's just make a project and see where it goes. Nothing is lost for you anyway. You're just there, having fun, collaborating, experimenting, being creative in general. So, and to hear the opportunity that we're invited to speak is also a good way to promote our project, yung promote yung mga natutunan namin, stuff like that. So for anyone who is like interested in joining hackathons, I say go for it. Like I just recently joined hackathons nung last summer, and it really opened my eyes to, oh okay, you can improve your skills outside school as well, and you really need to take that opportunity, especially virtual na. So just join as many hackathons as you want, you know, and then go for it.
Good. Any last words, Cyril?
For me, po, Daphne said a lot of it already, but also we
Sorry.
thank you to Space Apps for, thank you to Space Apps for inviting us here. Like, yeah, we really weren't expecting to be invited at all because, our team name was a meme and our cover photo for the project page was a meme, so you know, we weren't expecting it to get to this, but thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, like Space Apps was a great way to just practice, making projects, how to code, collaborate with people. So it's I really you know I'd encourage people to join it too, and also just hackathons in general. Like Daphne also said that everything's virtual now, so it's very easy to just join them. And there's nothing really lost in just going to them. Like even just to attend workshops or talk to people, like you will be gaining something out of joining hackathons. So just go for it.
Alright. Thank you so much for that, Cyril, and sa lahat ng ating mga panelists. Alam mo, Andre, in behalf of the Space Apps community, talaga nagpapasalamat kami sa inyo, sa PWA Pilipinas, na ma-feature tayo dito sa Hacktoberfest event, na makiselebrate sa inyo. Ayan, Lem, Rain, salamat kami. Nagpapasalamat din kami sa inyo, no, na sinamahan nyo kami since last year. Nag-mentor kayo sa mga participants sa Space Apps. Hanggang ngayon, kahit panahon ng pandemya, hindi tayo iniwan PWA Pilipinas. Ano? Talagang thank you so much for that. At dahil dyan, may $100 ka ulit from digital. Okay, gano'n, no? Oo, no? So, yun lang masasabi ko, Andre, no? Nagpapasalamat kami dito. At saka, siguro yung sa akin, no, yung takeaway dito is that hindi dito nagtatapos sa hackathon ang mga ideas. The journey does not end here. There are more. It is actually the start of the journey. No, continue developing your projects. And for me nga, siguro Andre, no, gusto kong kunin tong panahon na to, no. Nanalo na tayo, no, in the past years. Nare-recognize ang angking galing ng Pinoy ng ibang bansa. NASA, ESA, JAXA, PINES, and CSA. Alam mo, ito yung kinasasama ko ng loob, honestly. If other countries recognize our Pinoy talents, why not yung sarili nating bansa? Di ba? Tama, di ba? I mean, ba't hindi yung sarili nating bansa naman yung mag-recognize sa talent and ang kinggan yung mga Pinoy? It proves dito sa mga pinresent natin kanina na Filipinos are capable to create projects that can help humanity using space data, using open source data. And as earlier, dun sa sinabi ni Bash, Yumol, it goes hand in hand sa governance using open source data. So, hopefully, mabuksan naman ng mga mata ng mga ating mga leader, no? Mga kongresista, mga senador, sekretary, nananawagan ako sa inyo. Tignan niyo naman yung mga projects na ginagawa ng mga kapwa naman natin Pilipino, di ba? Yun naman. Kesa naman sa ang inaano natin, kinocultivate natin yung dalampasigan diyan sa sa Ross Boulevard. Why not put attention or invest in the minds of these bright-minded people? Hindi ba, Andre? Tama ba, Andre? Ikaw na natanungin ko, dapat bang suportahan ng ating gobyerno ang ating mga innovators dito?
Oo naman, syempre. Yun. Well, siguro dapat muna din makorek yung mindset nila about science, diba? Parang dun magsa-start yun. And yun. Siguro dapat pakita natin yung importance. Siguro dapat gawa lang tayo ng gawa at ng solutions. Pag nakita nila, uy, oo nga, no, makakatulong to. So baka mapag-isip nila na mag-invest sa kabataan, sa siyensya, diba? Yun.
Kaya dyan pumapasok na yung mga ginagawa natin, Andre, yung community building, community engagement. Papakita natin ngayon sa pamahalaan na ito ang tamang daan patungo sa kaunlad. Okay ba? Sige.
Okay, picture
Andre,
muna.
Sige.
Picture
okay.
muna. Picture tayo.
Picture muna. Okay, so tingin sa...
Nakaganito yung layout nito.
So,
sino mag-ano?
Ikaw na. May gano'n na.
Sige.
Ikaw na eh, no? Ikaw na. Oo.
Wait.
Ganito, no? Picture ka muna. Guys, tingin tayo wag sa screen, ha? Tingin tayo sa camera. Ha? Tingnan niyo yung camera. Smile.
Okay. Game. Okay.
Mag-voltage 5 kaya tayo. Voltage 5 po. Oh, yan. Oh, yan ha. Oh, yan. Sa gitna. Oh. Tenen. Gitna, gitna. Oh.
Ano yan? Wait, paano yan?
Voltage pipe.
Ayan.
Lem. Di yan. Yan. Isang ano lang.
Ito.
Tuturo pa yan. Oo. Turo mo dan sa gitna. Yan. Oh.
Paano?
Hindi yan. Yan. Tama yan, Andre. Baba mo, Daphne. Baba. Yan. Paki-ano na. Yan. Paki-ano na, Lem.
Okay, sige. Game. 1, 2, 3.
Let's bolt in. Oh, yan ha. Huwag yung gagayahin yan. Joke lang. Huwag yung gagayahin. Oh, yan ha. Sa susunod na mga webinar natin, ganyan yung gagawin natin. Voltage 5 po. Oo. Sige. Okay. Siguro sa end ng Space Apps, susuportahan namin kayo, kayo, mga finalists, mga global nominees, mga participants, tsaka yung PW Pilipinas. Okay, sige, Andre.
Ayan,
Any last words?
Thank you sa ating mga winners and participants sa pag-accept sa invitation. Ayan. So before natin tapusin yung ating event, yung live event, ayan. So, promote lang natin ulit, no? So, if ever na hindi nyo ito napanood ng live, may available to sa PWA Pilipinas app. Open nyo lang yung app.pwapilipinas.org or nasa Google Play din yan. Search nyo ng PWA Pilipinas. Tapos, promote lang ulit, yan, UXPH Conference 2020, Designers as Navigators of Change, November 14 to 15 yan. Visit 2020.uxph.org para sa tickets. Maraming speakers na magaling all over the world. Ayan, sige. Okay. So,
wow.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, mula dito, okay na tayo. Sige. So, mula dito sa PWA Pilipinas, saka sa NASA Space Apps, ako, si Michael at Andresito de Guzman ng PWA Pilipinas. So, nagsasabing paalam at magkita-kita ulit tayo hanggang sa muli. Okay? Sige. Goodbye!
Bye!
Bye.
It's Hacktoberfest.